Want to introduce? I'll stay muted.
All right, and we're live. Hello, everyone. So, Frank hasn't shown up yet. He didn't give me an exact time for when we were going to start this. He said between 12 and 1, and then he didn't, clarify what time. So I just started the event. I said the event was going to start at 12. I waited, an extra 30 minutes for him. It looks like he's planning on just starting at 1, whatever. So I'm here with Tristan, Primal Edge Health. He's supposed to moderate this debate again. And we're just chilling, waiting for Frank. We were talking a bit about heart disease, his own personal experience on the vegan diet.
My own personal experience giving myself heart disease with animal products.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can talk more about that if you want. I thought that was a really interesting conversation, but
yeah.
Obviously I'm not here to debate. Frank's going to debate. And for the audience, I promise I will not send any messages to Frank. I won't. It's going to be fairly moderated. And obviously, you guys can unmute yourselves. So it doesn't even matter if I'm here to moderate. Everybody's going to do whatever they want anyways. But hopefully it's respectful and fun. And I'm sure the audience will like it.
Yeah, so we were talking about you trying veganism didn't work out for you. Why don't you talk a bit about that?
All right, well, so I got introduced to the idea of veganism as a way of helping with health and reducing inflammation back in 2008, at the end of 2008. So I was last year at university where I studied history. So studied history at the university, was just finishing up my degree, and I had a lot of pain. So I got in kind of a skateboarding accident. I got hit by a car. Well, I hit a car and it stubbornly hit me back and I messed up my hip. So I had a lot of inflammation. I was in bed for I remember laying in bed and with tears in my eyes at points and just trying not to scream in anger and rage and pain because I had roommates. And so, I was in a lot of pain. I historically had kind of some gut issues, a lot of chronic inflammation. And I met this guy and he started introducing me to veganism. He made me a smoothie. My buddy Scott, he made a smoothie with blueberries and chocolate, cacao. And so after that, I kind of started looking more into the idea of using nutrition and stopping eating, shitty Mexican food every day with, polyunsaturated fatty oils, fried stuff, and all this crap that I was eating, Burger King, Ben and Jerry's. I ate a really shitty standard American diet. It was a standard college kid diet, drank a lot of beer, just pretty unhealthy lifestyle. And so I kind of started playing around with the idea of a vegan diet. And this was 2008, 2009. So you didn't see, I think maybe Durian Rider was on the internet at that point. Do you know if he was?
I'm pretty sure he was.
So I wasn't influenced by Durian Rider or anything, but that there was no vegan scene like there is now, right? You didn't have vegan gains debating everybody on the internet. You didn't have a huge online movement. There was a few kooky people like David Wolf and some of these other kooks that were promoting veganism. I didn't follow them either. I kind of was trying to do a whole foods plant-based. So we were trying to eat, we would do chickpeas, lentils, beans, and rice combined to try to get complete proteins. Every once in a while we'd have some cheese. So we weren't ethical vegans. We were never really, according to the common thing right now, we were never really vegan. But we were doing a plant-based diet. So anyways, it ended up not really working out for me. There was a period where I even tried to go more raw foods. Didn't like that at all. Went back to plant-based diet. Every once in a while having some goat cheese or something. I don't know. It just ended up not working out. I got pretty sick with some sort of a bacterial or viral infection. And I remember just being in bed and craving animal foods. I had heard that chicken broth was really good for recovering from illness and that in China they make chicken foot soup. I'd never had chicken foot soup in my life and I started craving it. So we made a broth with chicken and stuff, chicken feet. And this was after a 6-month stretch of doing a vegan diet. The only time when I was completely strict with it, no animal foods, was about 6 months. So I had some chicken foot soup, started feeling better. And since then I've been trying to explore diet and figure out what it is that I could eat to stay healthy. And that's kind of my experience there.
Oh, okay, weird. The gain turned up on your mic out of nowhere. I don't know why.
Let me see. Is it okay now?
Well, no, it's probably because there was a noise in the background, and for whatever reason, they made an update to Google Hangouts where it adjusts your mic volume. I don't know why the hell they did that. It's really annoying.
Okay, let me know if I need to turn it down. Or...
It's cool. Yeah. Yeah. So what turned me vegan was I saw a speech by Gary Yourofsky.
Yeah.
I think it was titled "The Best Speech You've Ever Heard," something like that. Somebody shared it on Facebook. I watched it, and it was like very convincing. Gary Yourofsky's a really good speaker. I basically explained that vegan diet is healthier, more ethical, more environmentally friendly. Basically, he just made it so in my eyes, there was no justifiable reason to eat animal products. So then I just went vegan on the spot that night, and it's just worked out for me. It's improved like every aspect of my health. I had a really, really bad, severe depression. Pretty much my entire life, ever since I was around 6 years old, I've had suicidal tendencies. And then after I went vegan, the suicidal thoughts went away. Still had like bad depression that I've been dealing with, but it improved to the point where I didn't actually want to kill myself anymore, which is a huge improvement.
Yeah, that's great.
And like recently, I've managed to totally get rid of my depression. I got rid of my depression the first time by taking psilocybin mushrooms. That actually totally got rid of my depression. It came back because like a few crazy things happened with the police and everything, and then I just worked harder to get rid of it again. Just cleaned up my diet, started exercising more, being productive, and then it went away again. But
do you think that the depression, so obviously there's a nutritional component to depression for sure, and standard Western, standard American diet will both agree that it's crap. Like a vegan diet, a whole foods vegan diet is probably going to be, especially in the short term, probably going to be better than most people's, Cheerios and Burger King and whatever junk foods around, high carb with high fat, high calorie diet. But do you think there was also like a correlation between childhood trauma and depression and maybe growing up? I know you mentioned like your relationship with your parents was kind of funny. I know you historically, like just remembering watching your videos, and I don't know everything about you, just from what you shared publicly, it seemed like you and your mom didn't get along for a long time, and you and your dad maybe had some issues too. You think that was...
Yeah, like I'm sure like there's multiple different pathologies with depression, and I'm sure it all kind of contributed. I didn't have the worst diet when I was a kid, though. My mom was a really, really fucking horrible cook. I mean, take just the worst imaginable. She couldn't she'd buy it's basically cut up pieces of chicken that's been frozen, and I think it was even pre-cooked. Yeah. She couldn't actually make that properly. She couldn't just heat something in a pan. I'd be given cold, soggy pieces of chicken that weren't cooked through.
Yeah.
So it was the most disgusting shit ever. So the only food that I'd have access to that I actually didn't want to throw up after eating was fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
So I was super into apples. I didn't like bananas for the longest fucking time, but blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, broccoli, lettuce. I ate a ton of fruits and vegetables when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So my diet wasn't terrible. I don't think it really contributed that much to my depression.
But it helped when you changed your diet. It obviously helped with the depression.
Yeah, it definitely did.
How much? So I think it's interesting, when you talk about recently your diet and your depression's gotten a lot better lately. But how much do you think that has to do with you becoming more of a man, moving out of your mom's home, getting married, right? Taking all these steps and jumping into life more, right? It's
sure.
if you lived your mom, you'd probably be kind of depressed. It sounds like you're not too fond of her at the moment. Hopefully you guys can fix things up and maybe work it out later. But
well, I mean, like when I went vegan, I was still living with my parents. And since that was really the only factor that changed at the time, I went from suicidal depression to depression.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear that the diet still had a pretty significant impact. But
Totally. But also lifestyle factors are obviously important.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm sure it has a factor.
The importance of diet, because when I started a plant-based diet, I did initially feel better. But thinking back, I'm not sure how much of that was me physically getting better nutrition or me just taking the step to consciously make myself a better person and not be such a lazy piece of crap. Like I was, I mean, I used to just drink a lot and party and stuff. And, I think I wasn't depressed in college, but in high school, I definitely experienced like intense depression. And a lot of that had to do with just the decisions I made and what I was doing with myself at the time. I was I was a lot of like the internet porn and stuff like that definitely played a huge factor. Like that ruined a lot of my years.
I find like I tend to get depressed when there's nothing for me to really work towards.
Yeah.
If there's nothing for me to like, strive for and achieve, that's when I really get depressed. So when the cops raided my house for the second time and I was separated from Jasmine, I couldn't really get any work done because all my equipment was in the apartment and I legally couldn't visit my wife.
Wow.
Like all that shit, like that made me depressed. So,
but not suicidal depression. It was just like you knew that you'd get through it. Right?
Yeah, it wasn't suicidal, but I got depressed again because there was nothing for me to work towards really. Like my life was just kind of halted again. So that definitely made me depressed. And, just being separated from my wife and shit,
Yeah. I mean, she's like your best friend, right? I mean, do you have anybody to connect with as strongly as her? Probably not. I mean, my wife, she's the only, she's my best friend. We do everything together. She knows everything about me. She knows me better than I know myself. So I think that's really important is like with depression and stuff, relationships, goals, right? Like actually having something you want to do. Because I remember in high school when I was depressed, it was this existential depression of like, what's the point? Why do anything? It's like I'm on the conveyor belt. I just felt like I was just going through the motions every day, go to school, learn a bunch of bullshit that I didn't care about. And I thought everybody was so fake and stuff like that. But I think looking back, it's like I was just as false as anyone else around me. I just projected that on everyone else. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what the hell I was.
Yeah, I definitely felt that in high school where it just feels like there's no reason to do anything and you're just kind of going through the motions. I totally get that.
Yeah.
Somebody donated in the super chat. Ethel Logos donated $5. He says, please ask Primal Edge Hemorrhoid why he was feeding Frank info during the last debate, despite accusing you of getting info from Jasmine. I need a laugh.
Skype gate exposed. Primal Edge Health exposed. I gotta go, man. I gotta go later. I don't know. Frank was getting smashed. Like he wasn't making coherent points. So it was basically just like, come on, Frankie boy, get up off the ground. You're all bloodied and bruised. Let's make this at least a semi-fair fight. Frank, make some dang points. So I just wanted to keep him on point. But during this debate, I won't say anything to Frank. It is what it is. Just because what I will say is winning a debate doesn't make one right. It's like, you probably agree with this. Like if you lose a debate, it doesn't mean you're ultimately wrong. So I think maybe the arguments Frank used were poor, but I do tend to agree with Frank that animal foods are very important for diet. And I mean, we could get into kind of some of my experience with that, or we could do it on another stream if you want to also. But my daughter, so after we did and you interrupt me at any time if you think this is boring or something, but you turn on the lights. My daughter, who was born a couple years after not a couple years after, but basically she was conceived right after our vegan experiment ended, right? So we had about 2 years of playing with plant-based diets, only about 6 months of a pure vegan diet, after which I didn't feel very good at all. Felt like my immune system was tanked. At the time, I thought I almost died from a sickness that shouldn't have taken me out. She had dental caries, like her teeth, her baby teeth, when they came out of her gums, they started turning to chalk. And that really freaked us out. It's our daughter. I know you got dogs, or you have a dog. Imagine a dog that came out of Jasmine's womb. You know, that was something that just, hey, Frank's here. Let me just finish this point and then we move on.
For sure.
You know, she meant everything to me. My daughter was, you know, she changed my life when she was born. So what happened was when she started getting dental caries, it freaked me out and it really, really scared me. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know if we were going to have to go get a bunch of crazy dental work, which would be traumatic. She'd have to take antibiotics. She would have to, you know, we didn't want any of that. So we started looking at the role of possibly nutrition playing a role in this. And we came upon like Weston A. Price information, which I know a lot of vegans are very critical of, but I highly suggest anybody critical of Weston A. Price read his book. It's actually a pretty important piece of history, anthropology, and it's a really important work on nutrition.
His book wasn't bad. He was a dentist, and he mainly focused on dental health.
Yeah. So he was focused on dental health, like you said, and he was looking for society. He actually tried to prove that you don't need meat, and he ended up finding all these cultures before they got in contact with Western foods, with processed junk foods, had great teeth, had great health, no tuberculosis. But as soon as the Western foods came in and they traded off their heritage foods, which were all based around animal fats that were locally produced sustainably. So you're looking at shellfish in the Polynesian Islands, in the Linoleic Valley, I think it's called, Switzerland. Linoleic Valley. They're using a lot of milk products, a lot of high fat dairy. So anyways, we started giving our daughter a bunch of butter and a bunch of bone broth, and her dental caries completely stopped.
Interesting.
So, and now her adult teeth came through. They're perfectly fine. Our second child, who by all accounts should have worse teeth than the first, because the mother loses a lot of mitochondria. Every time she's giving birth to a baby, she's giving up, you know, a piece of her life. Like she's giving up her life force to give birth. Our second kid had no issues with his teeth. So to me, that was just, it made it so blatantly obviously that in my family, we are definitely never going to give up animal products. And personally, yeah, that's just one anecdote I know, but I've got some other reasons too.
I'm sorry. Do I have to for the live stream? Do I have to have my audio device enabled, or are they going to hear it on Hangouts?
We can hear it on Hangouts.
No, you can, but my stream can't, right?
Yeah, you're going to have to go into OBS, and
I have it. I didn't have it. Yeah, I think I have it right.
Yeah, so it has to be, you have to have the input device on OBS for your stream to hear it.
It is, yeah. It says it's registering that it's going. So
okay, cool. Did you want to do your weird intro thing that you had planned? You mentioned
that. I mean, some people told me not to. Some people liked it. Well, let's ask the live stream when we start. If they want me to do it, I can do it.
I don't think so. They were already actually worried about it being too cringy.
No, I got it nailed this time.
Okay, if you really want.
No, we're gonna ask the live stream, and if they want to do the intro, we'll do it.
Well, okay. I'm looking at Vegan Gains live stream right now, and they're saying, "Do it, no." Don't
okay,
do
it's about, yeah, so I think
most say no. They said someone said they like the cringe. Someone said, "God save us."
Yeah, I think about 30% want to.
Hold on. Do I need to do it, or what are they saying, Tristan?
I'd say, yeah, about 30% want to see it for the cringe, and like the other 70%.
I want to see it personally. I think it's funny.
The other 70% want to see it anyway.
Yeah, why don't you just go for it?
All right. So wait, hold on. I'm going to start my live stream with it. So, hold on. First, let me. Got to put. I'll do that later.
Okay. People are saying, yeah.
I didn't practice because I didn't think I was going to do it, but I'm just going to wing it. My voice is probably going to crack like crazy, so we'll see.
I think the voice cracks really make the intro. I think that's the best part.
It's part of it, but it kind of ruins the Bruce Buffer like character to some degree.
But it really completes the Frank Tufano character, man.
Hold on, where's?
Do you want to practice, and me and Richard will talk a little bit more?
But he's already live, right? He's already live.
Yeah, we're live.
So it doesn't matter. Like I'm just gonna. I gotta just dress up real quick, and then I'll do it.
It's funny. It's funny telling those stories and reading the comments in Vegan Gains channel. They're all just like, none of them want to hear what I had to say. They weren't feeling it. But yeah, you know, I mean, you guys, if to Vegan Gains audience, if you guys want to hear more about this, I do talk about it a little bit on my stream. And maybe Richard and I could do another stream sometime. We could talk about some of these things. But thanks for listening, guys.
All right, let me just get ready to do this. All right, count to 20.
So, there's a funny comment. Sniffle, sniffle on that poopy poop intro. Poopy poop.
Oh, and by the way, I'll get to all the super chats at the end of the debate. I've noticed a bunch of people are donating in the super chat. Actually, since Frank is getting ready, I can respond to a few of them now. Joseph V donated $5. He says, debate, truth is terrorism, please. He accepted when I asked on Instagram, and if possible, I can moderate because I don't want it to drag on. Hashtag vegan gain substance AK. Sure. I'll debate him. Get him to either send me an email or have him message me on Twitter, and we can get something set up.
I like moderating debates too, and I won't feed him information. So
yeah, sure. Joseph, if you want to moderate, sure. As
long as Isaac isn't there, I'll moderate.
Yeah, like Joseph, if you want to moderate, as long as you're going to be a good mod and you're not going to jump in and you're just like moderating, sure, I'll let you mod. But yeah, get the guy to send me a message either through Twitter or through my business email, and we can get it set up. And thanks for the donation.
I think Frank's getting dressed. He might be putting on a tux right now.
Yeah. Kerwimakabane donated $8.99 PLN. He asks, please bet if Frank is going to do a cringy entry. Oh yeah, he is. You'd win that bet. I'm sure it'll be cringy. But thanks for the donation. Kerwimakabane, that's a really weird name. Sorry. Your Brain donated 20 MXS. He asks, what do you think of Zac Efron? He the best across? What the fuck? Zac Efron? You mean Zac Efron. He the best across. I think you meant to say actor? I'm not sure what you mean. I'm not a fan of Zach. Like, I mean, I don't think he's an amazing actor or anything. He's definitely in great shape, but not a huge fan of him. But thanks for the donation, Your Brain. I think he's a talented dude. I'm not into High School Musical or whatever, but he's a talented guy.
All right, you guys ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
Surgery on his face.
Is there a reason when I talk, my Google Hangouts isn't showing up on the Hangout screen for my live stream?
Yeah, I think that's kind of normal.
So they can't. They're just going to see me in the top. That's fine. Okay.
Yeah. It is set up so that when you talk, we can see you. I think it might.
But on your live stream, when you're using Google Hangouts for a live event, they see you when you talk. That's the only way you can do it, right? If you have your own link.
Well, when I start talking, I can see myself.
Yeah, but when I start talking, I don't see myself. So I guess that's how it is.
Frank can click on his own box.
Oh, you can click on your own box.
But I have to do that every time, right?
Yeah, I think. That's kind of weird. For me, I'm seeing myself. Are you seeing yourself, Tristan, when you talk?
Let me see. I'm in the Hangout. It doesn't change. It stays on you. But if I look at I'm looking at your stream right now, and you're talking, and it shows you, and then it just showed me. It just switched over. There's a delay, so it's working on your stream. It's just
if I click on my screen and it switches to mine, how do I switch it back to alternating between you two?
Just click on your name again.
Unhighlight it, so there'll be a white border off.
So unhighlight.
Someone said my body.
Okay, there we go. All right, you guys ready?
Yep, we're ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, and now, this is the moment you all watching around the world have been waiting for in the sold out YouTube live stream. Oh, wait, hold on. I'm sorry. I forgot to start my live stream.
Damn it, Frank.
We're doing it. I'm sorry. Hold on. Take two. It doesn't matter. Take two. Take two. Hold on.
There's no take twos on a live stream, Frank.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment you all watching around the world have been waiting for in the sold out YouTube live stream. And now, oh fuck, I forgot to look on my. All right, last time, I promise. Last time. Take three. They take three. Hold on. All right. It's time. 3 hours for the undisputed vegan versus carnivore heavyweight championship of the world. Introducing first, fighting out of the green corner with a record of 2 wins and 0 losses. He stands at 5'10" tall, weighing in at 301.5 pounds. Fighting out of his winter fruit garden in Toronto, Canada, presenting gamer extraordinaire Richard Vegan Gains Burris. And now, introducing his opponent, fighting out of the red corner. He stands at 5'8" tall, weighing in at 150.5 pounds, with a record of 0 wins and 2 losses. Fighting out of Manhattan, presenting the Roman marble statue, Frankie Boy Tufano. You guys are gonna kill me.
That was pretty fantastic, Frank. I just gotta make a cringe compilation of you.
I think I just went vegan. I feel tingly.
Okay, so for this debate, Frank and I agreed to basically continue sort of the same discussion we had before, where we're just going to talk about the general health benefits or negatives of the vegan and carnivore diet, with a particular emphasis on cardiovascular disease or atherosclerosis. So why don't you start things off, Frank? I know you kind of have a few things that you wanted to discuss.
Do you guys have any? I know the last one we did.
I just wanted to debate criteria of so the first person presents some evidence, the other person does not interrupt until they're finished with their evidence, and then I mean, if you need a clarification on a point, you can interrupt, but well, every time someone interrupts, they get a strike. Someone gets 3 strikes, the other person doesn't have to be nice anymore.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Why don't you start things off? You just lead the conversation. How about that?
You said lead the conversation? You want me to?
Yeah, like, I mean,
okay.
Yeah, start with
yeah, sure. So
should we do a time limit? Do you guys want to do a time limit like Frank has?
Well, the intro, I'm just going to do
I think 5 minutes at the very most is
yeah,
pretty
5 minutes
reasonable.
is 5 minutes is good. I do have a couple points that might, if someone's making a point, I don't want to put a limit because I think most are going to be shorter than 5 minutes and some only a few.
Sure. Well, sure. Like if it's a really important point that you want to drive, like sure, you can have an extra minute if you want, but you know, I think most, you know, like 5 minutes is pretty reasonable.
Okay, so all right, so I'm going to screen share. Oh wait, no, there's an issue with this. So the problem is now my chat just sees my screen instead of the Hangouts. So I have to share. First I have to click on Hangouts, and I have to do screen share, and then I have to go to my own screen. Okay. So screen share, screen 2. So now you guys see the Hangouts. Okay, so the first thing I just wanted to go over was mainly that mechanism is required in the Bradford Hill criteria to establish causality. It's not something that should be dismissed, although it might not be a complete justification on its own for something. It's not something that, oh wait, hold on. I have to put my video capture device up. I'm sorry, 1 second. Just the mechanism in the Bradford Hill criteria is a requirement of a causal relationship.
Where does it say that? Can you highlight that area?
You have to Google Bradford Hill criteria first.
I dispute that, by the way.
That's not the main part of my argument, but
yeah, that's cool. I'm just saying I dispute that.
So the Bradford Hill criteria has which one was it? Biological plausibility. So biological plausibility is a requirement of the criteria, and that's the mechanism. The other thing I wanted to show was, is everything we eat...
Wait a second.
Is my 5 minutes over?
No, okay. I just wanted to point out, why does biological plausibility, why does that mean, sorry, why does that refer to mechanistic evidence? Like, I mean, you could have a correlation that's so massively strong that would actually suggest biological plausibility. Like I mean, cigarettes.
That's not part of the Bradford Hill criteria.
Okay, well, I'm just not seeing anywhere that says you have to actually show mechanistic evidence.
Plausibility, a plausible mechanism between cause and effect is helpful, but Hill noted that knowledge of the mechanism is limited by current knowledge. It's part of the criteria. It's part of the Bradford Hill criteria.
If you don't mind, I think a better way to go about this, instead of hashing out the arguments right now, let's let Frank lay his case out. And then Richard, if you just want to write down notes about what you want to dispute point by point, then after this you can dispute.
I just think this is kind of important to clear up right now. It doesn't appear to me that you actually need to show mechanistic evidence, although it is part of the criteria.
What's the definition of criteria? Criteria is a principle or standard by which something may be judged or decided. So the Bradford Hill criteria is directly judged or decided on these 9 factors. 9 criteria to provide epidemiological evidence of causal relationship between a presumed cause and an observed effect. A plausible mechanism between cause and effect is helpful. It's a required part of the criteria. It's a required part of the criteria. This is not up in the air.
Okay, well, my point is it doesn't actually mention that you need to show mechanistic evidence. It just says plausible. Sorry, what was the actual wording?
Did you write this? Are we changing it now?
Yeah, okay, wait. It says plausible mechanism. Okay. That doesn't actually mean you have to show direct mechanistic evidence.
I'll explain this one more time.
Maybe
some of you ladies and gentlemen are a little bit confused. So
you can continue, but
plausibility, a plausible mechanism between cause and effect is helpful.
Yeah,
9
okay.
criteria.
Helpful.
9 criteria.
Yeah, it doesn't mention that
epidemiological evidence. So we can throw.
You don't actually need it.
What is the definition of criteria? A principle or standard which something may be judged or decided.
Well, yeah, Frank. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that it doesn't mention that you actually need mechanistic evidence. It just says it's helpful.
Okay, so we don't need the Bradford Hill criteria anymore. I get it. All right.
No, I'd say no.
Let me finish making my. This is one of the points I was.
No, Frank, I agree with you. Mechanistic evidence is helpful, but the Bradford Hill criteria says it's helpful, not required.
Criteria.
It says it's helpful. It doesn't say it's required.
Do you spell criteria differently?
Frank, if you actually read the criteria and it says mechanistic evidence is helpful, it doesn't say it's required.
Let's let Frank, Richard, if you don't mind, let's let Frank
just read it out again. Like it says it very clearly in the way it's worded. You can just read it out again.
Stuck on this one thing. Let's let Frank lay out his argument, and if you want to pick it apart piece by piece,
this is already going downhill. So all right. So let me finish my. So this review said, is everything we eat associated with cancer? And what this essentially did was find that an increased or decreased risk of 2.2 and 0.52 were found from every single food in the study. This demonstrates that by using different methods and models in studies, the data can be altered from a relative risk of 0.52 from a food as simple as beets. Let me see if I could go to the data chart in this.
So just to be clear, Frank, I just want to know, are you making an argument that we shouldn't rely on epidemiology?
I'm not telling my argument. So this shows that the relative risk of foods like wine, sugar, olive, 0.5 to drastic opposite, inverse and pro associations with different things. This was, I believe, cancer. So literally every single food is associated positively and negatively with cancer if you adjust the method. So this ties into why most published research findings are false. because various outcomes and models can be applied to pretty much form whatever conclusion you want. And this is pretty much changing things like confounding factors, and adjusting for confounding factors can greatly increase. And just forgetting a confounding factor can turn it in the complete opposite direction. And to understand the context of relative risk, if we look at smoking and lung cancer, the relative risk of smoking is 103. That's a 10,000% increase. Whereas something in epidemiology with nutrition rarely exceeds 5, 10, 20%. It's very rare to see. And this shows the magnitude of relative risk and how we should actually be applying it to, because with this data, 10,000% risk, relative risk of cancer in smokers, it's an example of why relative risk doesn't apply to absolute risk. Because if this was true, then every smoker would be dead last year.
Okay, wait. Okay, this is kind of an important point that should be brought up. You do have to factor in absolute risk when looking at relative risk. So absolute risk for absolute risk for lung cancer is well below 1%. So when you have a relative risk of 10,000%, that actually brings absolute risk to about 1%.
Relative risk so absolute risk is your absolute risk of a disease.
Yeah.
So your absolute risk of your absolute risk of lung cancer is, your absolute risk of a disease is a set percentage. Like how many people die of lung cancer in the United States every year?
Well, it's basically disease prevalence, essentially, is what absolute risk is.
I mean,
so it's
disease. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
I just explained it in a slightly different way. It's just basically it's the prevalence of disease. So that is something you have to take into account here. So basically the prevalence of heart disease.
That's what I just said. Because if you have if the absolute, that's what I just said. You can't apply relative risk for absolute risk, because then it would be a 3,000. As I said, everyone would have died of lung cancer yesterday.
Okay, wait, no, Frank, I don't think you're understanding relative risk all that well. So again, prevalence.
Hold on. Did he say that we have to consider we have to apply relative risk to absolute risk?
Well, just listen to what I'm saying here. So the prevalence of lung cancer in the US, for instance, it's below 1% for non-smokers, well below 1%. It's a fraction of a percent. So when you have a relative risk of lung cancer for smokers, that's 10,000%. So they have like a 10,000% higher risk of developing lung cancer. Well, 10,000 times like 0.0001, that ends up being 1%.
But the study isn't looking at smoking. The study isn't looking at lung cancer in the general population. The study is looking at lung cancer in smokers. So that doesn't even matter.
Frank, the way you get to relative risk is by comparing the disease prevalence of smokers versus non-smokers.
Well, this depends specifically on what that study says. So
okay, we're going off a bit here. So the point I'm making here is for something like smoking, because the disease prevalence is so incredibly low, you can end up with like massively high relative risk ratios. Now, for something like heart disease, where the disease prevalence is about 25%, about 1/4 of Americans have heart disease. That means the absolute highest relative risk that you could ever have in a study will be 4. So that's a pretty huge difference compared to, 10, in some studies you see a 10,000% higher risk where you'll see a relative risk ratio of about 100.
What's the point?
The point here is you're saying, okay, well, in most nutrition studies, you only really see relative risks of, around 1.25 or 1.5. Well, when the absolute highest relative risk you could ever find in a study analyzing heart disease is 4, then that's not really a fair thing to say, to compare like the relative risk of smoking to heart disease and say, well, look how small the relative risk is.
Where have you seen a study showing the relative risk in the heart disease trial is 4?
Sorry, what do you mean?
Where have you seen you just said the highest relative risk you'll find in a heart disease study is 4?
Yeah, basically the highest.
Where did you
you'll
find a
ever
study?
is
Where did
4.
you find a where did you find a study that said a relative risk of heart disease is 4 in an epidemiological study?
No, I said the highest possible relative risk you could ever find is about 4, because the prevalence of heart disease in the U.S. is about 25%.
Okay, so when we see every single heart disease and epidemiological association with heart disease around 1.05, 1.1%.
No, it goes higher. Like the American Heart Association.
I don't want to dwell on this too long. The point of my argument was, even if you applied relative risk of an epidemiological study in the context of nutrition, such as 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, to the risk of heart disease of 24%, we're still not seeing significant reversal in heart disease on these so-called ideas. We're just seeing slightly reduced rates.
No, you are. Again, Frank, when you take into account
so
disease
let's not touch
ratio.
on this. Let's touch on the actual studies now. So
okay, well, this is an important point.
Richard, if you don't mind, can we just, I think the better format would be to let Frank make his points, and then if you want to, cross-examine him on all of these points after, you can, but let's let him kind of lay out his case, right?
Okay, sure. Okay, sure.
All right, so am I laying out a case, or are you going to present something first? I presented my idea. Do you want to present any? Do you want to present information on why you want plant is good, carnivore is bad? Do you want to present anything?
Well, wait. Were you talking about how epidemiology isn't reliable because of essentially the risk ratio issue? Like, you never find risk ratios high enough? Is that?
That's not the issue. The issue is that has nothing. That's not my point. I explained my point. I'm not explaining it again.
Well, that's all you talked about.
Yeah, my point was to demonstrate the relative risk and how studies can be demonstrated to show that if cancer is found with a relative risk of 0.5 and 2.5 in the context of nutrition in every single food, why are we looking at these epidemiological studies with such low relative risks? The point is to show that data can be altered by methods and changing confounding factors.
Okay, sure. Data can be altered, but the thing is, if there's a good study design and there's no bias, and the study isn't intentionally made with a bias, and it passes peer review, and you find study after study showing these associations, and like, guess what? We don't only have cross-sectional data.
Okay, let's look at the studies. All right, let's look at the studies then.
Okay, well, and Frank, there is this issue with relative risk that you're not exactly getting. You made the comparison of, massive relative risks, for smokers versus non-smokers, but, with like a heart disease study, you only see relatively small relative risks where, okay, a population with an exposure versus without an exposure, you'll get a relative risk of around 1.2, 1.3. Well,
all right, this is we're
is
like 17 minutes in. Like, can we move on to? We're not doing this BS back and forth again for an hour on a nonsensical point. We're going to focus on the study of the debate.
Well, no, it's not a nonsensical point. It's an important point. You're basically trying to dismiss like entire areas of research.
I'm not dismissing it. I'm presenting information, and then when people watch the debate later, they can make their own assertion. That's what I'm doing.
That's why I think it's important to let you guys both have a section where you're able to talk without interrupting each other. The reason you had me here was to try and keep it flowing.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's cool. But Frank is trying to open up the debate by saying, okay, well, we can't rely on epidemiology at all.
So after he finishes making the rest of his points, refute that, and then everything else you want to refute point by.
Well, like, I'm already done. Like, I'm already done making my point about this. So if Frank wants to actually show any studies showing like an association of certain things or whatever, you can go ahead.
Oh yeah, and if you made your point already, let's just let him move on and go to the next points, and let the audience decide who's right, rather than just making the. We don't want to do it over and over again, right?
Sure.
Let's get some more points in.
Okay, so I went. Is it his turn now?
No, it's your turn.
You had for 5 minutes, and now you're saying you don't want it. Why am I?
What do you mean? I presented my point, and he interrupted it along the way 15 times. That was my point. That I just wanted to present that information about relative risk, letting people know that studies can be altered.
Well, right, and I responded to that point. So
you didn't respond to the point. You interrupted me and botched the point. So now it's your turn to present something, and I will not interrupt you. So I will demonstrate how you can behave like a respectful human being.
Okay, sure. Okay. So since this debate was supposed to focus around heart disease, I'll show some research.
Just to I'm sorry, but the focus of the debate is the context of it could be anything from is plant-based good or bad, is carnivore good or bad, and pertaining to heart disease though as a side as some main issue, cardiovascular disease risk.
Okay, so wait, like you said, we were supposed to be discussing vegan versus carnivore, health benefits, health negatives, with a particular emphasis on heart disease, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. So like, I'll just start off with this topic. So, I'll turn on screen sharing. So I referenced this study in our last debate. I think it's a really, good recent study. It covers multiple meta-analyses.
Which trials do those meta-analyses look at?
What do you mean?
You have meta-analyses. Can you scroll down to which trials the meta-analyses looked at?
Okay, well, you can read the. Well, anyway,
okay.
Well, I'll focus it on me.
What
you can read? So, well, you can read basically what meta-analyses they're looking at. So, low-density lipoproteins cause atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. Evidence from genetic epidemiological and clinical studies. Consensus statement from the European Atherosclerosis Society consensus panel. So, basically, what they looked at was a combination of prospective epidemiological cohort studies, Mendelian randomization studies, so basically genetic studies, and randomized trials for LDL lowering therapies. And what they found is, across all of this research, having elevated LDL cholesterol was associated with increased risk of with atherosclerosis or cardiovascular disease, whereas lowering LDL cholesterol corresponded with lower risk of cardiovascular disease. So across all of this data, randomized trials, prospective cohorts, Mendelian randomization studies, it's pretty clear across all of this research that LDL plays a causal role in cardiovascular disease risk. So why don't we just, start there? Frank, what do you think about some of this data?
Okay, so this is just a correlation. Do you have a mechanism, or do you want me to?
This isn't just a correlation. This actually proves a cause and effect relationship.
Okay.
You don't actually need a mechanism to prove a cause and effect relationship. So if I were to, like as an example, the theory of evolution. So you don't actually need to demonstrate a mechanism in which evolution occurs to prove that it happens. The fossil record.
I'm not asking if a mechanism is necessary. I'm just asking if you have a mechanism that shows LDL causes heart disease.
Oh, okay. Well, like oxidative modification of LDL particles, it increases, permeability through the arterial wall, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you explain in further depth of that mechanism of what would cause oxidation in the LDL?
Oh, mechanisms. Okay, so
what causes oxidation in the LDL?
Okay, well, basically exposure to like inflammatory substances. There's certain things in food that can cause oxidation that are pro-oxidative, like heme iron, for instance.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oxidative stress in the body is related to metabolic syndrome. This could be diabetes, high insulin, oxidative stress from foods, consuming oxidized hydrogen oils. That's what oxidative stress is caused for in the body. So I can go for 5 minutes without an interruption, right? I can go now? Or is he...
Okay, so you're basically going to make a case for...
against LDL, but if you interrupt me, I'm not going to listen to what you're saying. I want to finish my argument, and then you can...
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so I have to screen share with you guys first, right? Okay. Screen share. This one. Okay. So here's a study showing LDL-C does not cause cardiovascular disease. A comprehensive review of the current literature.
Oh God, this. Okay, sorry. Oh shit.
Okay, so you could laugh. So if I laugh when you bring up a study, does that make it discreditable?
No, I'm not. Sorry, I'm not trying to.
This has nothing to do with the basis of my argument. This is one of the side things. Okay.
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 I'm just gonna say, like, right off the bat, like, sorry for interrupting you, but this is one of the absolute worst literature reviews I've ever come across.
Okay, that's great. So then,
case, and then you can respond to the case.
This is not a debate. This is you just being a child. This is what this is.
Okay, well, you're bringing up a horrible literature review. So
okay, but fine. I did not finish my debate point. So how do you know what my point is? So how are you saying it's horrible if I did not bring up my point?
I just couldn't hold back my laughter.
That's great. Okay. This is cholesterol levels and hospital mortality. Each 10 milligram per deciliter increase in total cholesterol was associated with a 4% decrease of in-hospital mortality. This study shows low cholesterol is associated with mortality from stroke, heart disease, and cancer. When you lower cholesterol, it's higher mortality, even after excluding deaths due to liver disease. This study shows dietary cholesterol and coronary heart disease, a systematic review. The relation between dietary cholesterol and the risk of CHD is not clearly understood. Here we have lipids, risk factors, and ischemic heart disease. And this pretty much explains that LDL cholesterol is not a good indicator of cardiovascular disease in comparison to other markers. Firstly, the ratio of total cholesterol to HDL should be determined, followed by measurement of plasma triglyceride concentration. This will allow differentiation of whether the low-density lipoproteins, HDL cholesterol, or triglyceride-rich particles, such as the small, dense VLDLs, are the major cause of concern. This shows that this is study of the use of lipid panels as a marker of insulin resistance. So let me just find out where it is. Okay, so the risk for a 60 milligram increase in LDL was 1.14. The risk for an LDL-C greater than 1...
Sorry, go through that again. I missed it.
Okay. So this is study of the use of lipid panels as a marker of insulin resistance to determine cardiovascular disease.
Okay, and go through the risk ratios.
Okay. I mean, I didn't even start yet, but...
Well, there's a results section. Just, go through the results section.
What I'm doing. The risk for a 60 milligram per deciliter increase in LDL was 1.14. The risk for an LDL greater than 160 was 1.19. In contrast, the hazard ratio for having an insulin-resistant triglyceride to HDL ratio was 1.68, compared with an insulin-sensitive ratio. So this is showing that the HDL to triglyceride ratio is significantly more important than LDL in determining heart disease risk.
Okay, well, wait a second. So,
well, I didn't finish my argument yet, so why are you interrupting me?
Well, LDL-C was associated with an increased risk of heart disease.
Richard, I would like to finish my argument.
Okay. I'm just saying that's what the finding of the study.
Okay. So this shows subjects with high-risk LDL cholesterol levels greater than 160, but low total cholesterol HDL ratios had a low incidence of cardiovascular disease, which means they had high-risk LDL, but since their cholesterol to HDL ratio was good, they had a low incidence of cardiovascular disease. But people with low levels of both LDL, which was similar to that in people, so that was similar to people with both low LDL and cholesterol. So having a good cholesterol to HDL ratio, despite having high LDL, is just as good as having low levels of both LDL and total of LDL cholesterol and total cholesterol. So subjects with low-risk LDL cholesterol levels, less than 130, had high total cholesterol to HDL ratios, and they had a significantly higher incidence of cardiovascular disease than those with similar LDL cholesterol levels, but low total cholesterol HDL cholesterol ratios. Compared with using the LDL cholesterol level of 130 as the cutoff point, using the total cholesterol HDL cholesterol ratio of 5 was associated with significantly higher specificity and accuracy and similar sensitivity than LDL cholesterol.
Okay, could you stay on that page for a second?
if you like. I'm not done with my argument yet. I can link
Okay,
the...
I'd just like you to stay on that page for a second. So, one thing I want to point out
I'm
here.
not done with my argument yet. So
well,
let me
okay,
finish
well,
my argument.
just,
This is
it's
not
kind of
the
for
main point of my. This is not.
It is sort of for the sake of.
Is this a debate? I mean.
Well, Frank, you're pulling up like 10 studies at once. I'm just saying, like, you should stay on this one
So
page.
let me know if you need to take notes, but you can't say anything because I'm not done with my point
I'd like you to just stay on that one, like, just for that one study. I'd like to just interject for a second.
No, you can't because I'm not done making my point yet, and you don't know what my point is.
Okay, well, whatever. Just keep going, I guess.
Okay, so here we see that changes in LDL cholesterol cannot affect LDL particle type. However, changes in HDL cholesterol can affect LDL particle type, showing HDL is significant in changing particle type. Here we see that HDL function is impaired in acute myocardial infarction independent of plasma HDL cholesterol levels. So this shows that, obviously, this is a very significant, if HDL is impaired in 2 out of 3 of some cardiovascular disease risk patients, then why are we only looking at LDL as a marker? Because this in itself could reduce the body's ability of HDL cholesterol to remove it from the arterial wall. Here we have, and this just goes saying, expert from the National Lipid Association says that other markers are better for determining this. This is low cholesterol and external cause mortality. This shows that low cholesterol has significant association with external cause mortality. 1.97, 1.76. This has to do with depression and suicide associated with low cholesterol. This just shows that having, there's that Alzheimer's patients have deficiency in fats and cholesterol, and advanced glycation end products are present in significant amounts in Alzheimer's brains. Fructose, increasingly pervasive sweetening agent, is 10 times as reactive as glucose in inducing AGEs. And this glycation damage interferes with LDL-mediated delivery of fats and cholesterol to astrocytes, and therefore indirectly to neurons. The study is the detrimental role of a high-carbohydrate diet. So this shows that...
No, that's fructose. That's not that's not high carbohydrate. That's just talking about, like, industrially processed sugars.
I mean, you want to dig deeper into the study and see what it says?
Okay, sure. Like, look, it's going to be discussing industrially processed carbohydrates.
No, it just says fructose.
Yeah, no, excessive dietary carbohydrates, particularly fructose. Go to the abstract.
So so when you consume
the abstract. No, go back up to the abstract. It says right there. Excess of dietary carbohydrates, particularly fructose. So that's...
So you're saying they're drinking pure fructose juice?
Okay, well, no, it's saying that fructose in particular is associated with Alzheimer's disease, which means industrially processed sugars.
Advanced glycation end products are a product of glycation. It could be any excess glucose or fructose in the body, which is the result of carbohydrate metabolism. So in excess carbohydrate consumption, you will produce fructose, glucose,
so
all these glycation end products.
Right, so don't eat in excess, and there's fructose, like industrially processed sugar, plays a particularly pivotal role.
Can you demonstrate a difference between fructose in fruit and fructose in a food? It's the same thing in the body.
No, well, no, it's really not. You understand that fruit has things like fiber in it?
I mean, is that why Ashton Kutcher got like some sort of pancreatitis after following Steve Jobs' fruit diet for a couple of weeks?
Okay, I have no idea about that, but you're saying there's an association between fruit intake and Alzheimer's disease?
So you're saying that fruit has fiber. So
okay, well, Frank,
how would fiber inhibit the uptake of fructose by the liver? Fructose is processed in the liver. So does fiber go to the liver too?
Okay, well, Frank, fiber slows down the absorption of these nutrients. And Frank, if you're going to make this claim,
do you have a source that fiber shows down the absorption of fructose?
Well, Frank, if you're going to make this claim, can you show me an association between fruit intake and Alzheimer's disease? Frank, guess what? No, Frank, Coca-Cola is not the same as blueberries. So can you show me an association between fruit intake and Alzheimer's?
I don't have to show you an association between fruit intake and Alzheimer's. You have to show me an association demonstrating that fructose from fruit is different than sugar, because you're making that claim.
Okay, no,
I'm saying
Frank,
fructose is fructose. This
okay.
study says fructose, an increasingly pervasive sweetening agent, is 10 times as reactive as glucose.
Frank, you're saying, okay, good. So Frank, you're saying blueberries is the same as Coca-Cola. It's going to cause the same disease risk for
I'm saying
at least for
fructose is
Alzheimer's.
fructose. I'm saying if you put fructose in your body, fructose does this in the body. That's what this study's saying. I'm not saying that. The study's saying fructose is 10 times as reactive as glucose in inducing AGEs. This is not denominating the difference between those foods. But if you can prove that consuming blueberries in a study compared to Coca-Cola is better, by all means you can. But this is Frank, saying that fructose induces AGEs.
Okay, so Frank, you can't actually show me a study showing that fruit intake increases risk of Alzheimer's disease. Is that what you're telling me?
Why does that matter in the context of AGEs and Alzheimer's brains and them not having?
Because you're making a claim that carbohydrate intake in general across the board increases risk of Alzheimer's.
I'm saying that excess carbohydrate intake that causes glycation, which glycation causes AGEs, and that results in lack of cerebrospinal fluid of Alzheimer's brain is deficient in fats and cholesterol.
Well, Frank, if you read the abstract, it's very clear that they were saying industrially processed sugar, particularly fructose, plays an especially pivotal role in the development of Alzheimer's. So that wasn't dealing with fruit intake.
In this paper, we highlight how excess of dietary carbohydrates, particularly fructose, alongside a relative deficiency in dietary fats and cholesterol, may lead to development of Alzheimer's. Where does it say? Where does it say processed or refined fructose, or where does it say that?
Okay,
I just don't see it.
Okay, well, Frank, usually in the abstract, they don't really go into detail about that, but generally when they discuss fructose, they're talking about industrially processed sugar. So, look, are you really telling me that in the study, when they mentioned fructose, they meant blueberries, bananas, apples?
I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is the purpose of this study wasn't to. So what are you're trying to make an argument that a plant-based diet using fruit as a source of fructose is fine. That's what you're trying to say.
Yes, I don't think there's
I'm not saying anything about that. I'm saying what this study says. You're trying to make a point. Okay, you're trying to make a point when I'm not even finished with my point yet, and your point has nothing to do with the point I'm trying to make. So,
what point are you trying to make by referencing that study?
Just that having low carbohydrate intake and not getting enough LDL, cholesterol, and fats in the diet is associated with Alzheimer's. And then here we have another study: high cholesterol in late life was associated with decreased dementia risk.
Okay.
Now, do you guys want me to butt in and make space for the points to be made? Because it seems like Frank is.
Well, you know what? Okay, well,
I don't want to interrupt if you don't mind the interruptions. If you guys want me to let it flow.
I just have one more study. And then he can go.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we have very low carbohydrate diets, and very low carbohydrate diets were better at improving HDL and TG with greater carbohydrate restriction. That's my point. My point is that LDL is not a good metric for determining heart disease, and there's far better metrics.
Can you go back to that last study and just leave it open?
Yep.
Okay, I'm just quickly reading through this. Okay, cardiometabolic. All right. Well, I asked you to leave it open.
I'll send you the link in the.
Okay, whatever. Okay, so the general problem with the studies Frank linked, they didn't actually consider the issue of reverse causation. So he linked a number of studies. Some of them dealt with different topics, but the overall gist of it is low cholesterol is associated with increased risk of all-cause mortality. That's actually a common association that you'll find when you're studying elderly individuals, and most of the studies Frank linked, they actually involved studies on elderly. If you take a look at studies like the Framingham study, where they had a wide age range ranging from, I think, 20s to
part of the Framingham criteria for determining heart disease risk is HDL cholesterol.
Okay, that's fine. This doesn't really have anything to do with that, the argument I'm making. So if you take a look at something like the Framingham study, which had a wide age range, and they did split subjects into age groups, it ranged from, like, some people at the beginning of the study, they were like in their 20s, some people they were in their 50s. So if you actually separate by age group, under the age of 50, low cholesterol was associated with reduced risk of all-cause mortality, including heart disease. After the age of 50, declining cholesterol was associated with all-cause mortality. So for Frank to claim that having lower cholesterol increases your risk of all-cause mortality, well, that's not actually true across all age ranges. For younger individuals, having low cholesterol is associated with reduced risk of all-cause mortality. Now, for elderly individuals, this is kind of interesting, and the consensus among most experts is that because of different factors, so say somebody is starting to develop cancer, or their health is in general decline due to either a direct effect of the disease they have or an indirect effect of the disease. So certain forms of cancer, they can directly lower your LDL cholesterol. If you're getting sick frequently, that can reduce your appetite, that can lower your cholesterol. So because of these direct and indirect factors of aging, developing disease, that can lower your cholesterol, and low cholesterol can be a sign of just worsening disease. So it's not that low cholesterol is actually causing an increased risk of all-cause mortality. It's that low cholesterol is an indicator of worsening disease and thus an increased risk of mortality. So cholesterol isn't actually playing a causal role in all-cause mortality risk. So one obvious sign of that is younger individuals with lower cholesterol levels, they have a reduced risk of all-cause mortality. That's why it's generally accepted that this is a reverse causation effect. When we see low cholesterol being associated with an increased risk of all-cause mortality. And one very good study that came out recently was this. So it's a, oh wait, sorry. I think this is a, yeah, sorry, this is the wrong paper. So this is a Mendelian randomization study. So basically what they did was they took a look at people's genes. They identified genes that were associated with lower LDL cholesterol levels. And what they found was people who have genetically low LDL cholesterol levels had a predisposition for lower risk of mortality all throughout life, including in the really old individuals, the really elderly. And beneficial LDL genetic risk profile is associated with familial longevity.
Can you bring up the are you able to bring up the table, the data they looked at for that? Just go to sci-hub.se.
Yeah, I know Sci-Hub. Let me open this up. Yeah. Okay. You want me to?
Do they have lipid panels? Do they look at blood numbers? What data do they? So let's look at that's just
okay. Well, this was baseline characteristics. Yeah. So basically, what they did was can
you scroll down? Can you scroll down to look that chart? So is that it? No, I don't think so. Where's did they have data showing? I think it might have been that last chart. Go to the last chart that you were just at.
Okay, well, this would probably be the closest thing you're looking for. Risk score.
Scroll down to the comparison. Do they have where's the baseline showing their LDL, their trigs, their blood numbers? Where is that?
Okay, well, I just want to point out this. Again, risk score, and if you go to as you go down to the more elderly individuals, you'll notice that the people who end up surviving to the age of 90 or over, they actually end up having more of a higher concentration of these people have a better genetic risk score. So the people who are at higher risk of developing heart disease due to having genetically higher LDL levels, they're dying off earlier. So was this what you wanted me to show?
Hold
Or
on, let me just give me 1 second. Let me bring up the study myself on my screen. I just want to take a quick look at something.
or was it okay? Baseline characteristics. LDL cholesterol. So this is in millimoles.
Can you name the study?
Oh, okay. Well, LDL cholesterol still a problem in old age. I can just link it in the chat.
Yeah, if you could do that.
There you go. So again, if you actually look at this baseline characteristics, as people age, you actually start to see their LDL go down. Again, that kind of coincides with the data in this chart, where the people with the lower LDL cholesterol levels appear to be living longer. Let me go down here. So, like, the point I was making linking the study is that there are a number of confounding factors that result in this reverse causation effect, where you start to see people with lower cholesterol levels having an increased risk of all-cause mortality, especially in the elderly and younger individuals. You don't really see that. These Mendelian randomization studies, they get rid of that issue. So if LDL cholesterol did, or just cholesterol in general, if it played a causal role in all-cause mortality, if this association we're seeing with low LDL and increased risk of all-cause mortality was causal, then in these Mendelian randomization studies, the people who have genetically low cholesterol should have an increased risk of dying, but we see the exact opposite. So that shows that this research you're linking, showing low LDL is associated with increased risk of all-cause mortality. That's not a causal relationship. It's most likely just a reverse causation effect. These people are just getting sick, and the sickest people tend to have the lowest cholesterol levels, but because they're the sickest people, they're going to have a higher risk of dying.
So why does the oldest population have the lowest triglycerides, and why does the 80 to 90 have higher LDL? I mean, this is just showing that the HDL to triglyceride ratio is more of an important indicator than LDL levels.
Okay, well, that's another thing I wanted to bring up, Frank. I will agree, HDL to triglyceride ratio. It is an important biomarker to take into consideration when we're assessing like cardiovascular disease risk. But the one study you referenced, they compared they compared a group people with an LDL cholesterol score of 160 or above to a group of people with an LDL cholesterol score of 130 or below. And between those two groups, the people with 130 or below actually had higher risk of cardiovascular disease or all-cause mortality. I forget what it was. But the people with the lower LDL, they had a worse HDL to triglyceride ratio. So that is an important thing to keep in mind, HDL to triglyceride ratio. But between those two groups, they all had high LDL cholesterol. So
okay,
that is something.
You're saying.
Well, wait a second. Wait a second. I'm not totally done making my point.
Oh, so you can arm me 8 times, but I can't say one thing.
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. So I've referenced this study before. I think I brought this up in our first debate. So optimal low-density lipoprotein is 50 to 70 milligrams per deciliter. Lower is better and physiologically normal. So in this paper, they basically go over, this chart doesn't really matter, but what does matter is this. So if you take a look at randomized trials, they made a regression analysis, and basically when LDL is below 70 milligrams per deciliter, that's when you don't see progression of atherosclerotic plaque. And that's also when cardiovascular disease events are minimized, when LDL is below 70 milligrams per deciliter. So when you're comparing, groups of people, and you say, oh, well, this group of people had
read
low
the summary of that study.
Wait a second. When you say people with low LDL cholesterol levels actually end up having higher risks of heart disease, and it's because their HDL to triglyceride ratio is higher. So HDL to triglyceride ratio matters more. Well, you're taking things out of context. All of these people still have high cholesterol. So if you actually take a look at what's actually the safe range for LDL cholesterol, you'll find that people who have an LDL cholesterol score below 70, they have virtually no atherosclerosis. So
Tristan, has it been 5 minutes?
Sorry?
It seems like the debate format has kind of gone out the window, though. I don't want to interrupt you guys because you're interrupting each other a lot.
I would like this to be structured. I have interrupted him 1 or 2 times when he talks, and he's interrupted me 15 times.
Very nice. I agree.
Well, you know what? I'm almost done. Like, Frank, I literally only need 30 more seconds. So the point I was trying to make is, if you actually look at people with LDL cholesterol in the safe, healthy physiological range below 70 milligrams per deciliter, atherosclerosis becomes non-existent. The research you're looking at, everyone has elevated LDL cholesterol, and then you're just, within that context, everyone having elevated LDL, you're just looking at additional biomarkers that have relevance to heart disease, don't get me wrong, but they still have high LDL. That doesn't mean LDL isn't important. So you're drawing a false conclusion.
So you're saying everyone has high LDL, so what's the solution?
Well, no, not everybody has high LDL. The people in the study you were referencing, yeah, everyone had high LDL.
So I showed studies showing correlation between low LDL and higher mortality, or high LDL and lower mortality. You showed studies showing the opposite. We can both show studies back and forth, but what's your mechanism showing that LDL causes heart disease?
Okay, wait. You're misinterpreting what I'm saying. The one study.
No, hold on. I'm getting a little sick of this. You talked for 5 minutes. I interrupted you once. Let me finish my argument.
Let's let Frank.
Okay, well, Frank, I don't want you to spin your wheels.
Is this a debate, or are you just talking bullshit and making things up? Is this a debate? A debate is back and forth. I say 5 fucking words, and you start interrupting me.
Well, no,
you're not helping me.
I'm trying to help you here.
Let him make his points.
Can you mute him? Can you mute
my
him?
argument, and you're just going to.
You're being a fucking child. You know that? I am respectful enough to not.
Let's let Frank make his points, please. And then Richard can cross-examine, and then Richard can make his points, and you can cross-examine. If we're just yelling back and forth, there's no point in me even being here. I don't want to interrupt and derail because you guys are both going at it, but let's just get some structure. I mean, I think the audience is complaining too in both chats about the structure. Let me unmute you. I think you guys are muted.
Am I still muted?
How do I unmute? I'm trying to unmute Richard, but I can't.
You don't need to. I can just unmute myself.
Am I still muted, or?
No, we can hear you.
Did you want to take a break to eat some more fruit or sugar or something? I know you're not able to pay attention to what I'm saying because your blood sugar is going down.
Okay, well, Frank, I was trying to explain to you that you're misinterpreting what I'm saying, and I was trying to re-clarify so you can actually properly respond to what I'm saying.
I'm not misinterpreting what you're saying. You completely ignored the importance of the total cholesterol to HDL cholesterol and why it's more significant than LDL.
No,
and we can study correlative studies back and forth.
No,
do you
Frank,
actually know?
Like you to pull up that study again. No, Frank, please pull up that study again.
Do you know how cholesterol causes heart disease?
Okay,
do you know how it happens? Because the reason you think LDL is the issue is because you don't understand how cholesterol causes heart disease.
We don't need to get into like this whole mechanistic argument. It's totally pointless.
It's not. It's literally so how cholesterol causes heart disease is pointless.
If we're arguing, no, Frank. If we're arguing whether or not LDL
I'm not asking you. I'm not asking you whether the
mechanism is completely pointless.
I'm not asking you whether the mechanism is important. Do you know the mechanism?
Okay. Well, yes.
How does it happen?
Okay, well, when you increase LDL cholesterol, a few things happen. You're increasing the chances of these LDL particles to become oxidized, and once they're oxidized, then they're going to permeate the arterial wall. Then they embed themselves in the arterial wall. Then macrophages see that as some sort of attack, like your immune system reacts to it, sucks up the macrophages. They attack the LDL that's being embedded in your wall. Then they become foam cells. They basically become bloated with lipids, and then plaques start to form. It's basically the gist of how it happens.
So do you understand what causes LDL to enter the arterial wall? Besides oxidation, oxidative stress can. So LDL entering the arterial wall is a normal function, right?
No,
Yes,
it's
it is.
not.
LDL
Okay,
cholesterol
well,
enters the arterial wall as a normal human physiological function.
okay, well, there.
Let me
Okay,
explain.
can you show me?
So can you give me a few minutes to explain this without interrupting me? Because you
Sure.
don't understand how cholesterol causes heart disease. So
Okay, well, Frank, you know what? Like, I think this is a bit more. It would be more important if you actually go back to the one study you referenced.
no, this is important because if you don't even understand how cholesterol causes heart disease, why am I wasting my time entertaining
Well,
someone?
okay. Well, Frank, you're trying to make some it's
No,
basically a red herring.
I'm explaining for the chat. So it's not a red herring. It's how cholesterol causes heart disease. So LDL cholesterol normally enters the arterial wall. What can increase the amount? So LDL normally enters it. However, yes, inflammatory factors can increase the amount of LDL that enters the arterial wall. This can be the impairment of the glycocalyx, little hairs that act as a sieve. When you eat a high carbohydrate meal, the glycocalyx is impaired. This can be impaired by smoking, oxidative stress, anything related to metabolic syndrome, insulin, obesity. So now more LDL is coming through the glycocalyx. And the endothelium and the cells can also be compromised. So more LDL can leak through these gaps and these junctions. And once the LDL enters the arterial wall, we're assuming that you have a lot, like if your LDL is high, obviously, more LDL would be predisposition to entering the arterial wall. Now,
So you agree with?
No, I'm not done explaining this yet.
Okay, well, wait. Do we agree here that elevated LDL is a risk factor for heart disease?
Let me explain my argument, and then you can ask.
Well, that's cool. I just want to know if you agree with me here. Do you agree that LDL cholesterol, elevated LDL cholesterol, is in fact a risk factor for heart disease?
No. So that's why I'm explaining this. No, I don't. So the LDL enters the arterial wall. There's a lot of it. It becomes inflamed. More of it binds to the proteoglycans, and the HDL becomes dysfunctional as well because of oxidative stress. And the HDL cannot take the LDL out of the arterial wall. And what determines how much LDL leaks to the arterial wall is specifically the total cholesterol to the HDL ratio, because that shows the amount of high density lipoproteins in the smaller, higher density LDL particles in your blood are more predispositioned to leaking through the arterial wall. That's why that ratio is important. Total LDL has nothing to do with the amount that leaks through. It has nothing to do with why it leaks through. It has nothing to do with oxidative stress. It's just a number and a metric. That's all it is.
Okay.
If you'd like me to explain what causes oxidative stress in the LDL, I can do that as well.
Okay. So can you bring up the one study you were referencing, like the one study you focused on for why you think HDL to triglyceride ratio is a more important biomarker for LDL than LDL? Sorry.
I can show the studies again if you like.
No, well, just the one.
There's several of them. There's several of them that do that.
Okay, well, I recall you bringing up one where it compared two groups of people, where the one group had an LDL cholesterol score above 160. The other group had an LDL cholesterol below 130.
It's not. This is so. If you want me to present the information on the importance of total cholesterol to HDL ratio, I can present the information again. If you want to nitpick one study, that's not how this works. My argument is a whole argument.
Okay, good. Well, we'll start with the one study.
I said what I can do. I can present my argument on why LDL is not significant again, so you understand it, or we can move on.
Frank, let's just start with the one study, and then we can carry on from there if you think there's better evidence.
I will present all the studies, and then you can argue.
Frank,
on the last.
No, Frank. Like you can't just do this where you go, oh, let's screen share. Don't interrupt me. There's this study. Don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me. There's this study.
That's why you can take notes.
No, Frank. I want you to bring up the one study, and then we'll break it down why I have problems with it, and then we can continue the discussion from there. You can bring up more research if you want. You can't just go through a series of 10 studies and expect me to respond to every single point you brought up. I'd have to write
I brought up one
essay.
point. I brought up one point. One point that LDL is not a significant metric for heart disease.
Frank, bring up the study where you looked at where that involved the two groups of people in the study where some people had a LDL cholesterol above 160, some below 130, but the difference between the two groups was their HDL2 triglyceride ratio.
Just give me 1 second. Let me see which my tab is. Arachidonic acid, all the implications of high omega-6 diets, atherosclerosis.
Can you screen share just so we can actually see what you're seeing?
I mean, I'm trying to find it first. Hold on. Ischemic heart disease. All right, yeah. So give me 1 second. Let me screen share it. Okay, share screen. Okay. No. Yes. Okay. So I don't know which one.
I think this. Yeah. So that was it. Can you actually link that to me in the chat?
You're lucky I've been fasting for 6 days. Otherwise, I would have fucking vomited already.
Are you linking it?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. So I'll screen share this. All right, so if you look down in the abstract, so this was looking at subjects with insulin resistance, but lipid measures healthier than the median had worse outcomes than those who were insulin sensitive, but had unhealthier lipid measures, blah, blah, blah. So the hazard ratio for a 60 milligram per deciliter increase in LDL-C was 1.14. 95% confidence interval, 1.1 to 1.18. So this was very statistically significant. So increasing LDL was in fact associated with increased risk of heart disease. So now they looked at this. So they started looking at HDL to triglyceride ratio. So the HR for an LDL-C greater than 160 was 1.19, confidence interval 1.12 to 1.28. Again, very statistically significant. So people with higher LDL scores, again, had much higher risk of heart disease. So in contrast, the hazard ratio for having an insulin-resistant triglyceride to HDL-C ratio was 1.68. So basically what they found was HDL to triglyceride ratio had a greater effect on heart disease risk than the LDL score or the increase in LDL cholesterol. But that doesn't mean LDL cholesterol didn't have its own, wasn't, that doesn't mean LDL had no part to play in heart disease. It's just that in this study, they found that triglyceride to HDL-C ratio was a better predictor. But the thing you have to take into account here is all the people in the study, they all had high LDL cholesterol levels. So yes, like I wouldn't say, triglyceride to HDL-C ratio, that's totally irrelevant, but LDL does play the most significant role here because guess what? All the people who were at risk for heart disease in the study, they all had high LDL. And again, oh wait, sorry, that's the wrong study. And again, if we take a look at some of the most recent data, as long as you keep your LDL below 70 milligrams per deciliter, your risk of developing atherosclerosis is virtually zero. So the problem, where did it go? Oh, crap. Damn it. Sorry, let me just click open the link again. So my problem with the study is that, okay, I get your point, Frank, that triglyceride to HDL-C ratio, it's very important. Don't get me wrong. But none of these people had an LDL cholesterol score below 70, which, according to multiple converging lines of data, that appears to be the safe, healthy, normal physiological range for LDL cholesterol. All the people in the study, they didn't have the safe, healthy, normal physiological range for LDL cholesterol. So I would still argue that LDL cholesterol is a better marker for heart disease risk than triglyceride to HDL-C ratio. It's just that people within the high LDL bracket, on top of having high LDL, triglyceride to HDL-C ratio is going to be another factor that influences heart disease risk.
But HDL to total cholesterol level is more important of an indicator than LDL.
No, that's only for people who already have high LDL.
That's in all the studies that I showed.
Right. So my point is, high LDL is the most important factor, but among people with high LDL, triglyceride to HDL ratio is going to be a better predictor if you already have high LDL. So that's my point.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So
right. So LDL is still the principal risk factor here.
So why do 70% of people admitted to the hospital for heart failure have normal cholesterol levels?
What do you mean by normal? So what was the mean?
Mean TC was 150.
Okay, mean total cholesterol was 150. What about their LDL?
Each 10 milligram increase in total cholesterol was associated with a 4% decreased risk in in-hospital mortality odds.
Well, again, Frank, this is a reverse causation effect. Adverse cardiovascular events can lower your cholesterol. Having just adverse affliction to disease can lower your cholesterol. Again, if you take a look at some of the more recent data
that's not what it is.
Well, no, if you take a look at some of the most recent data here, having low LDL cholesterol throughout your lifetime is associated
with my data
with
not recent
risk and severity of heart disease. No, okay, Frank. Well, again, I brought this up earlier in the debate.
Tristan, can we interject here and get this into something a little more reasonable?
Oh, do you want to move on?
No.
I think we need to. I've been saying I've wanted this to be formatted 5 minute present points, and he's just dragging things back to this.
Several times I tried to get it back to the format, but you guys were both going along.
Frank.
No, actually, I let him talk for his 5 minutes to present his argument on that why I was wrong, and then I responded. And now we're going back and forth on the same BS study that I already gave my response to.
Frank, you just asked me a question, and then I responded to your question. You asked me, why is it that people who've suffered a heart attack have normal or low LDL? And I said, it's a reverse causation effect. It's because they're sick. Their sickness through either direct or indirect factors lowered their cholesterol. And then, that's actually, you can actually make associations between, people who have low cholesterol and increased risk of dying because they're the most sick people. But that doesn't mean low cholesterol is actually a causal factor there. Factor there. It's reverse causation.
Let Frank respond to that. Frank, you want to respond to those points?
I could be wrong, but what I've surmised from this argument is you have no understanding of how cholesterol actually causes heart disease.
Doesn't matter.
And you have no argument. And you have no argument about why that you have. Everything I've showed has proven that LDL is less significant than total cholesterol to HDL ratio. And I've shown just as many bullshit studies as you have. I can go back and forth. Oh, low cholesterol, high cholesterol. It doesn't matter. You don't understand the mechanism. You have studies. You have studies. You have studies. I have studies. I have studies and mechanism. You don't. You have studies. I have studies and mechanism. I have more of the criteria than you do.
Well, let me explain why mechanism doesn't matter here.
Let me explain why. That's all you're doing is explaining why it doesn't matter without proving science. You have no science to back your position. You're just no. We already discussed mechanism in the beginning of the debate. So now you can present.
No, mechanism doesn't matter here. We can determine whether or not something plays a causal role.
I have mechanism in study.
If it doesn't, study. Even without
I have mechanism in study. You have studied.
Okay, Frank. So let me explain to you why mechanism doesn't matter here.
Let me explain to you. I'm not listening to this. We're moving on. We're moving on.
No, we're not. Okay. No, we're not.
Let's hear why mechanism doesn't matter from Richard. And then Frank, you can tell him why mechanism.
We already spoke about mechanism for the first 10 minutes of this debate. We're not talking about it again.
Well,
that's completely ridiculous.
If we really think he can dismiss the mechanism, let's let him make his point.
So why do you want to talk about mechanism when you don't understand how hard?
I'm not trying to talk about mechanism. You just keep trying to drag this into the debate when you fail to show that LDL cholesterol doesn't play a causal role in heart disease.
I just said let's move on from mechanism, and you want to talk about it.
No, we're not. I'm not trying. So sorry. I'm trying to explain to you why mechanism doesn't matter. You keep trying to drag mechanism into this debate when it doesn't matter. So what we're arguing here is whether or not LDL cholesterol plays a causal role in heart disease risk. You've been trying to argue that it doesn't. I've been trying to argue that it does, but I don't need to actually show. I don't actually need to show a mechanism.
You cannot prove causation without mechanism.
No, you can't. No, you can. You can't. You absolutely can't. Not part of the criteria. Look, even based on the criteria you mentioned at the beginning, it even said mechanism is not required to determine causation. So by your own standards,
did you core
bring
a
it up
cauliflower
again.
and put
Frank,
it between your brain and your skull?
bring up the
This is not
standard.
getting through to you. We already talked about this for 15 minutes.
Frank, bring up the standard that you brought up at the beginning of the debate.
are
It even
moving
said
on.
mechanism is not required to show
We are moving
causality.
on. I want to entertain.
Hold on.
I
Just
want
wait
to
a second.
entertain
Wait
the
a second. Hold on, Frank, Richard, hold on. So Richard says mechanism doesn't matter. Frank says that's ridiculous. Mechanism does matter. There's nothing else being discussed here.
Mechanism is part of the Bradford Hill criteria.
No, it isn't. So
It's for
mechanism,
plausibility.
bring it up again.
Mechanism is required.
Bring it up again. Bring up the
watch-
Bradford Hill criteria. It doesn't say mechanism is required to demonstrate causality.
Yes, it is.
It doesn't. We discussed this right at the beginning of the debate.
We did, and apparently, since your blood sugar isn't fucking high enough, you don't remember.
Okay, well, Frank, let me explain to you. Let me explain to you why you don't need mechanistic evidence. Frank, let me explain to you why you don't need mechanistic evidence to prove causality.
I can write you a little notepad of what
Frank,
happens.
this will only take 2 minutes. Just let me explain why you don't need mechanistic evidence to prove causality.
You have the Alzheimer's we spoke about earlier because you're consuming too much fructose, and your brain has lower levels of LDL and cholesterol.
Frank, I can explain to you why you don't need mechanistic evidence to prove causality.
You're forgetting what we spoke about. No, we already spoke about this. We literally already spoke about it.
No, we didn't.
We spoke about this in the beginning of the debate.
No, we talked about the Bradford Hill criteria, but I didn't explain to you why you don't need mechanism to prove causality.
I'm trying to figure out where you guys want to go with this. Frank, are you saying
I want to present a new point?
Yeah, all right, let me just clear something.
No. Frank's trying to run away from this because he knows he's caught in a corner.
Wrong, and we already discussed it.
One question, then I'll ask. All right, Frank, is mechanism required to prove causality?
In the Bradford Hill criteria, yes.
Okay, no, it's not. Bring it up again. Bring up the Bradford Hill criteria.
I've told you.
Bring it up again. No, bring it up again. We're not done talking about this. This is a very important point for the debate. So bring it up again. Okay, I can't explain to you why mechanism isn't required to prove causality. It can be helpful, but it's not required.
Richard, can you prove causality without mechanism?
Yes, you absolutely can.
No,
how?
That's not true.
No, you absolutely can. Okay, so you don't actually need to understand how something works mechanistically to determine if it has a causal role or not. So I could use the analogy of evolution. So for a very, very long time, we didn't actually understand the mechanism of evolution, how it actually occurs. We didn't know that there was such a thing as DNA, genetic code, how it's passed down, mutations. But we did know that evolution did occur. If you just the fossil record alone was enough to prove that. Species become more and more complex over time. You can actually show how species...
Let me read plausibility one more time to you. Plausibility is a plausible mechanism between cause and effect is helpful.
Okay,
but
Frank,
Hill noted that knowledge of the mechanism is
Frank,
limited by current knowledge.
Let me ask you this.
We know the mechanism. We know the mechanism.
Let me ask you this. Frank, let me ask you this. If this was 1850 and we didn't know there was such a thing as DNA, but we had the fossil record and we could show that species become more and more complex over time, and you can actually show a gradual change in species from terrestrial mammals to whales. If I can show you all of that data, but I couldn't explain to you a mechanism in which evolution occurs, would you have said, okay, evolution isn't real? You can't actually show it.
Yeah, but the point is that we do have a mechanism on LDL and cholesterol.
Good. That's fine.
There is a mechanism that we understand, and you're denying it.
No, I'm not denying it.
Right,
Look, I'm not denying it. I'm saying
it's not important.
Look, I'm saying it's not important in context to the discussion we're having now. We're arguing whether or not LDL plays a causal role in heart disease risk.
Grab me a nice little check from that YouTube commission. I'll take a flight over when you sleep, and I'll
We're
inject some
arguing,
DHA in your brain.
Frank, we're arguing whether or not LDL plays a causal role in heart disease risk. We don't actually need to discuss mechanistic data to determine that.
Mechanistic data, if we have it, it is mandatory in causality.
No, it isn't. Bring up the Bradford Hill criteria again. So since you don't want to do it,
I'm going to need like a fat check because I'm going to need to buy either.
Let me just throw this in there that evolution is not proven science, and this is not factual science. This is a
wait.
This
Kristen,
are
you saying you don't believe in the theory of evolution?
Oh, absolutely not. And it is a religion.
Okay.
It is a religion.
I understand that you're. I understand that you're Christian.
We can talk about this after, maybe you and I both.
Okay, so
not proven science.
All right, so I would like to present another argument against for why LDL can potentially cause heart problems. I'm going to explain why elevated LDL can potentially cause heart issues.
Okay, so Bradford-Hill criteria, a plausible mechanism between cause and effect is helpful.
Okay,
so that doesn't say it's necessary.
One thing, and we can move on. I agree. High LDL in certain contexts can cause higher rates of heart disease. Can we move on?
Okay, that's not quite good enough for me. I need to.
Good enough for me. I need to.
Okay, so that's not quite good enough for me. LDL cholesterol has been proven to play a causal role in heart disease risk. And right now, the current evidence suggests that an LDL cholesterol score below 70 milligrams per deciliter virtually eliminates that risk.
I agree.
Depending on the study, there might be a slight variation. There might be a slight variation for that number due to regression analysis.
LDL has a causal role in cholesterol. Let's move on to my next point.
So LDL does play a causal role.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, okay.
Well, let me move on. And now can I explain my point for 5 minutes without you interrupting me? Sure. So this is why LDL causes heart disease. So let me share my camera. Hold on. All right. And please mute him because I need to finish this. Otherwise, I can't deal with
it. I promise to behave.
And you can refute him afterwards. Okay, Richard, is that cool?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so it has been demonstrated earlier that patients who consume food items enriched with plant sterol esters have increased plant sterol concentration in serum and aortic valve tissue. What this means is that pretty much any food with linoleic acid. So a diet supplemented with plant sterols over a time period of up to 4 years compared to those who had not had 6-fold higher concentrations of plant sterols in the aortic valve tissue, indicating plant sterol deposition in cardiovascular tissue. These findings, however, could not be verified in a smaller study with shorter time period of plant sterol supplementation. This shows that if you increase polyunsaturated fats in the diet, the long-term effects of plant sterols being in aortic valve tissue, it's a longer-term thing. Luster and colleagues in another recent study demonstrated a correlation between oxidized plant sterols and serum aortic valve tissue. So that's one. And then in a cohort study, substituting dietary linoleic acid in place of saturated fats increased the rates of death from all causes, coronary heart disease and cardiovascular disease. This shows available evidence from randomized controlled trials shows that the replacement of saturated fat in the diet with linoleic acid effectively lowers serum cholesterol, but does not support the hypothesis that this translates to a lower risk of death from coronary heart disease.
Sorry.
I'm not done yet.
You're going
not done yet. I can't hear you. I'm not done yet.
You're just going a little quick. Can you go back up?
I can slow down. So what would you like me to repeat?
No, just go back up. What's the name of the study?
Reevaluation of the traditional diet hard hypothesis analysis of the recovering data from Minnesota coronary experiment.
Okay, and go down to it looks like they have hazard ratios. So can you go through that?
Okay, sure. So there's a 22% high risk in death for each 30 milligram per deciliter reduction in serum cholesterol. There is no evidence of benefit in the intervention group for coronary atherosclerosis for myocardial infarction. Systematic review identified the 5 randomized control trials for inclusion and meta-analyses. These cholesterol-lowering interventions show no evidence of benefit on mortality from coronary heart disease or all-cause mortality.
Okay, well, we have a number of meta-analyses.
I'm not done with my point yet.
Yeah,
please write that down, get your study, and you can refute it after I'm done.
Okay, sure.
Lethal atherosclerosis associated with abnormal plasma and tissue sterol composition. These results indicate that cholesterol, plant sterols, and 5-alpha-stanols are deposited prematurely and are associated with accelerated atherosclerosis in subjects with cysterolemia and xanthomatosis. Those are...
Look. No, these results indicate that cholesterol. Okay, so that agrees with my claim. Cholesterol is associated with atherosclerosis.
I'm not done with my point yet, and you have no clue what I'm about to say. So
you're referencing research that actually supports my opinion. So thanks.
Let me finish my point. So this is showing is that people with accelerated atherosclerosis have high levels of plant sterols in the cholesterol. That is what this is showing.
These results indicate that
I'm not done with my argument. Yeah. The percentages of linoleic and linolenic acids increased more than 3-fold when people went on a high linoleic acid diet. If a specified diet is followed sufficiently long enough, the linoleic acid content of the adipose tissue will approach that of the diet. The next point is, this is endothelial cells.
So, by the way, linoleic acid is omega-6
Let him finish the point, and you can refute afterwards.
I'm not done yet. I'll be done in a few minutes, and then you can refute the point. So this pretty much says if LDL particles contain linoleic acid, it oxidizes when it enters the endothelium. Human umbilical vein endothelial cells convert linoleic acid into HODE, most commonly HODE9, which are oxidation products of linoleic acid. This shows that once linoleic acid becomes oxidized in LDL, aldehydes and ketones can covalently bind ApoB, creating LDL that is no longer recognized by the LDL receptors in the liver, but is now recognized by scavenger receptors on macrophages, leading to the classic foam cell formation and atherosclerosis. Here we have strong increase in hydroxy fatty acids derived from linoleic acid in human low-density lipoproteins. So what this shows is that 9-HODE, the more produced oxidized linoleic acid byproduct, was 20 times higher in atherosclerotic patients than healthy volunteers in the same group. The content of 9-HODE in LDL of older patients increased 30 to 100-fold than compared to older individuals. And then we have linoleic acid is associated with significant increased uptake of oxidized LDL by these cells are essentially just endothelial cells. Taken collectively, this data shows a new mechanism by which linoleic acid may promote endothelial dysfunction, that of triggering the toxic effects of oxidized LDL on vascular endothelium through LOX1, which is a receptor, and LOX1 is an LDL receptor for binding oxidized LDL. So here's another study showing that many studies have now documented that oxidized LDL product by a variety of different techniques showed enhanced uptake in macrophages and can lead to cholesterol ester accumulation and foam cell formation. They used soybean to induce this, linoleic acid. This study shows that the formation of esterified linoleic acid in the LDL causes immune activation of the human monocytes. This is why it forms foam cells. A previously observed requirement for general LDL oxidation in this culture system. The oxidized esterified linoleic acid was present in the supermatant data, or the supermatant with the LDL, and was not cell associated. Okay, so the next one, and formation of oxidized LDL. This just shows that linoleic acid increases cardiovascular events versus alpha-linolenic acid in a 2-year study. This shows, these two just show that almonds, walnuts, there are many foods that have linoleic acid. So these studies essentially demonstrate that there's a specific mechanism that if you consume linoleic acid, your lipids in your body will convert to linoleic acid, and that will oxidize in the cell, and that will cause heart disease.
Okay, cool. So basically what you demonstrated, Frank, was that consuming too much omega-6 fats, which, it's not a good thing. I think we both agree on that.
No, that's not what it said.
That can increase the risk of heart disease risk. No, guess what? Omega-6 fats, they're essential to your health. If you don't consume any omega-6 fats, you'd literally die. There's actually a funny story on how we discovered that there's such a thing as omega-6 fats. There was a woman who was shot with a shotgun. Her intestines were basically totally destroyed. And the only way to keep her alive was to actually inject her with nutrition just directly into her bloodstream. What they found out was the injection she was getting, they were deficient. And she developed this incredibly rare, I think it's the only known case of this, where she was deficient in omega-6 fats. That's how they actually discovered that omega-6 fats are an essential fat. So you need a certain amount of omega-6 fats, Frank. If you didn't get any omega-6, you die.
I don't think you understand what my
too much. So too much omega-6 fats are what can be harmful there. And especially if you cook with a lot of omega-6 fats, that's especially bad. Sorry?
You kind of missed my point.
What was your point?
If you consume linoleic acid, it oxidizes LDL and forms macrophages and foam cells.
Well, Frank, you need that. Do you know what linoleic acid is?
I do know what linoleic acid is.
Okay,
do you know what
they're essential fats?
Do you know what? Okay, what foods have? What are the main sources of linoleic acid?
Okay, well, like any oil, basically.
What kind of oils?
Any plant oil.
What kind of plant oil? Can you be a little
like olive oil, peanut oil, soybean oil.
Linoleic acids are exclusive to seed oils.
Okay. Well,
things
no.
that used to be used as machine lubricants, hydrogenated seed. They used to be used as machine lubricants. That might be a little more.
Well, Frank, linoleic acid, that's omega-6 fats.
What other types of omega-6 fats are there? Do you know?
Okay, well, tell me.
Alpha-linolenic acid is the predominant omega-6 plant fat. Alpha-linolenic acid is drastically different than linoleic acid, and alpha-linolenic acid does not cause this oxidation. Linoleic acid found in seed oils is the cause of modern heart disease. In Weston Price's book that Tristan was speaking about earlier, all of those indigenous groups were absent of heart disease because they did not consume industrialized seed oils.
Okay. So what point are you trying to make? So that's bad for you? Okay, we agree there.
Frank's saying that the main problems is the seed oils and the omega-6 is a major issue.
Okay. Okay. Sure.
You're saying you claim that high LDL has causality with heart disease. I'm showing you that if you consume linoleic acid in the form of seed oils, it changes the fatty acid composition.
Okay, sure. I agree with that. How does that disprove that LDL isn't harmful?
Because the only reason LDL is oxidizing is because it's composed of linoleic acid.
No, that's not the only reason LDL can oxidize.
I just showed you a mechanism of how LDL oxidizes from linoleic acid. Can you show a mechanism?
Cool. Yeah, I can actually. Yes, I can actually. Okay, so here's a study. Is heme iron intake associated with risk of coronary heart disease? Meta-analysis.
No, it's not a mechanism. I showed you. Can you show
meta-analysis of prospective
what is the
studies.
mechanism?
It actually goes over a mechanism here. So heme iron may contribute to the development of atherosclerosis by catalyzing the production of hydroxyl-free radicals and promoting low-density lipoprotein oxidation. So heme iron so there are multiple things that can cause oxidation of LDL particles. Heme iron can be one of them.
You're
there are multiple ways to oxidize LDL. Look, Frank, you can consume oxidized LDL particles. If you fry an egg at a high temperature, you can be consuming oxidized LDL. Like, what are you talking about?
That study you just showed on heme iron increased free radicals in the body, which is a form of oxidation. Yeah. But what I showed is that when linoleic, I did not show that. I showed that if a LDL particle has linoleic acid, it physically oxidizes. All you're showing is that consuming heme iron can increase free radicals.
No, that actually causes low-density lipoprotein oxidation. What are you talking about?
Any oxidative stress in the body can cause oxidation.
Right.
This specific mechanism.
So you admit that you don't actually need linoleic acid to cause LDL oxidation.
You do, because there's a specific.
Sorry.
You don't seem to understand the studies I showed you. When linoleic acid enters the endothelium, it is not recognized, and the body has an immune response to it. If there is no linoleic acid in the cell, the body will not have an immune response to it. General cell oxidation isn't what this is. This is every single LDL particle that enters the endothelial wall is causing inflammation because it contains linoleic acid. Do I need to explain?
Literally nothing you said made any sense. So Frank,
I know it doesn't make any sense.
Frank,
you don't even know how cholesterol causes heart disease.
So Frank, your first claim was that linoleic acid can contribute to LDL oxidation, and I agreed with you there.
No, it doesn't contribute to it. It's the sole cause of LDL oxidation.
Well, it's not the sole cause. There are multiple things that can cause LDL oxidation.
I'm showing you a mechanism that causes every single LDL particle that contains linoleic acid to be oxidized. You are showing, if you increase oxidation, you can increase. All right. So do you understand what oxidation is?
Well, why don't you explain it to us?
I will explain it to you. Can you answer it?
Sure. Okay.
Do you know what excess oxidation in the body is called?
Okay. What is it?
Reactive oxygen species.
Okay.
Do you know what reduces oxidation in the body?
Antioxidants.
Good answer. So the body is capable of dealing with reactive oxygen species if it has enough antioxidants. Unfortunately,
what foods have the highest antioxidants, Frank?
The point isn't that the foods have high antioxidants. The point is that there's low oxidation in the body. You can consume all the antioxidants you want, but the pathways to produce those antioxidants are inhibited greatly. That moves me on to my next point, if I may continue.
Well, wait. We haven't solved this riddle yet.
That's why I need to move on to my next point.
So, Frank, you claimed that linoleic acid is the only possible way that LDL can become oxidized.
I said that linoleic acid is ensuring that LDL becomes oxidized.
Okay, so all right. So I think we can agree at least on one point here that linoleic acid, like refined seed oils, they're bad for you, and I'd agree with you there. And I'd even agree. And I'd even agree with the
point I'm leading towards is that high omega-6 in the diet is inflammatory.
Sure. Yeah, and I'd agree with you there. So I don't think we disagree on that point. The point of disagreement here is that you originally claimed that the only way that these LDL particles become oxidized is if they come into contact with linoleic acid.
No, I'm saying that linoleic acid. I do I have to repeat myself a third time? I really think you.
Okay.
I
So,
can.
so just,
I'm starting a new company.
clarify. So
Starting a
just
new company, so I'm getting shipping deals. I can ship first
so
class to
just
Canada.
clarify this,
$10
Frank.
a pound if you
Just
want some
clarify this, Frank. Linoleic acid, so exposure to linoleic acid is one way LDL can become oxidized, but are there other ways?
I will get into that. Yeah, I'm going to get into that right now.
Well, it's just a yes or no question. Are there other ways LDL can become oxidized?
We can bring up an oxidation chart and show what causes reactive oxygen species in the body. But the primary cause of reactive oxygen species is poor omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, which is exacerbated in a vegan diet.
Well, why is that exacerbated in a vegan diet? You can eat a appropriate omega-6 to 3 ratio.
Conversion rates of alpha-linolenic to EPA is insignificant and causes imbalanced omega-6 ratios.
You're confusing things. So you can eat an adequate ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fats. I'd agree with you. Conversion rates tend to be low, but that doesn't actually influence your intake of linoleic acid.
Not on a plant-based diet.
No, Frank, you don't have to eat a high intake of omega-6 fats on a vegan diet. So what are you talking about?
Are there any low omega-6 fats on a vegan diet?
Sorry, are there any foods that are low in omega-6?
On a vegan diet?
Yeah, pretty much anything that's low in fat. So
do you know what the conversion? Okay, so do you know what the conversion of alpha-linolenic acid is to?
That's okay. That doesn't matter. I don't care if it's 1%. That doesn't matter.
The conversion rate matters because if you consume a plant food high in omega-6 and it converts at a rate of 8% to omega-3, if you consume a high amount of omega-6 alpha-linolenic in the plant form, and then you consume
okay, then don't do that.
No,
don't eat a high amount of omega-6 fats.
No, it doesn't matter if you don't eat a high amount because the conversion rate is low. So only a certain percentage of it is converting into the omega-3. So you should have a high amount of.
That has nothing to do with what you just talked about.
Can I explain this?
It wouldn't matter because that has nothing to do with what you were just talking about. It does matter
because you don't actually understand it.
Frank, you were just claiming
100% to what happened.
You were just claiming that consuming too much omega-6 fats causes, oxidation, reactive oxygen species.
Consuming any omega-6 fats causes reactive oxygen species in the context of a plant-based diet.
Wait, okay, I'm a little confused here.
That's why I'm asking you if I can explain my studies.
You're just not explaining anything well, and I don't think you actually know what you're saying.
Let's let Frank explain his points. Let's let him.
Well, no, I just want to this needs to be clarified.
It does. So, that's why I want to clarify it. Can I fucking talk so I can clarify it?
Oh, okay, why don't you just go ahead?
Good idea.
Let me just say I've got about 15 more minutes that I can give to this. I think I don't know if you guys want to do a part 4 after this or something, or if I just leave and you guys can.
Well, let's just try to get through it without you. If Frank gets too frustrated, then he can back out, and then maybe we can schedule another time.
C-labeled fatty acids converted from alpha-linolenic acid at rates 7.9% EPA, 0% DHA. So you can't convert DHA from alpha-linolenic acid, and the ratio from EPA conversion is 8%. That means if you consume 1,000 milligrams of alpha-linolenic, you have all this omega-6 fatty acid that is not being converted into omega-3. Therefore, your omega-6 fatty acid levels are high.
You can't convert omega-6 fats into omega-3. What are you talking about?
What do you want me to do? Alpha-linolenic acid.
Okay. ALA,
alpha-linolenic acid conversion rates into
EPA and DHA.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what does this have to do with omega-6?
This has to do with that you have this mainly has to do with the conversion rates are low and you can't obtain enough EPA on a diet, and that you're consuming. So the point of this, let me clarify it. So you're consuming this omega-3. The EPA conversion rate is low, but the foods on a plant-based diet that contain omega-3.
This is alpha-linoleic acid. That's not linoleic acid.
Let me explain my point. You're consuming a food that has any plant food that has alpha linolenic acid will also have high levels of omega-6. If you're consuming this...
No, that's not true.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. Okay, so flax seeds are super high in omega-6?
You're not explaining... No, the point is flax seeds, after you account for the amount of omega-3 that gets converted, is a high omega-6 food because you're not converting omega-3. Yes, it is.
No, it's not. This doesn't even have anything to do with conversion rates. Frank, you're talking about the absolute quantity of linoleic acid. The absolute quantity of linoleic acid is very low in things like flaxseed.
This is
the conversion rates have nothing to do with what you're talking about.
This is not the point.
Okay, well, Frank, let's agree for the sake of argument. You can't convert ALA at all, like 0% to EPA and DHA. Let's just say that's not true, but let's just say for the sake of argument, you can't convert any of it. What does that have to do with avoiding linoleic acid on a vegan diet?
This is in the context...
You can have low intakes of linoleic acid.
This is in the context of vegan diets being high in omega-6, therefore inflammatory.
You don't need to eat high omega-6 fat intake on a vegan diet.
You're really missing the point. The point is, if you consume any omega-6 fats, it throws off your ratio. The omega-6 fat intake is not high. The ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 is high. That's the point.
Frank,
This is the issue. This is the issue. When you consume linoleic acid or alpha linolenic acid, it competes for the 6-desaturase enzyme.
Yeah, and it has a 4-to-1 binding affinity.
This enzyme also converts DPA into DHA, but incoming omega-6 impairs it. That is why...
Yeah, that's why you don't eat much... Yeah, that's why it's good to avoid omega-6.
There has never been a study to show that omega-6 or omega-3, anything, can convert into DHA in the context of a plant-based food.
Okay, and I should care why?
Because every single person consumes linoleic acid, and linoleic acid competes with alpha linoleic acid for conversion to EPA and DHA.
Okay, Frank. So, based on this information, let's just look at this in the bigger context. Based on this information, what dietary recommendations would you make for somebody?
I haven't finished my point yet.
Okay.
Can I finish my point?
Sure.
Okay. So we see that the conversion rates to EPA aren't high, and the issue, and that ties into conversion rates of DHA as well. And so here we have DHA is an ancient nutrient for the modern brain. This is pretty much saying the brain requires a certain amount. I believe it's 4.8 milligrams. Basically, the brain requires a certain amount of DHA per day to function. And vegans are not getting adequate amounts of DHA unless they are supplementing it.
Okay.
So the issue with this is predominantly the fatty acid ratios in vegans. If we look at linoleic acid, it's substantially higher. If we look at EPA, it's substantially lower than meat eaters. If we look at DHA, it's lower than meat eaters. Now, where this ties in, this is another thing showing the same similar things. DHA is low, and all these, basically the omegas are low compared to high meat groups. Now,
okay.
let me finish my point. So, human breast milk, the DHA content ranges from 0.06% to 1.4%. That's a huge variance, and that's determined by fish consumption. And it's usually recommended that 0.3% concentration in breast milk is the targeted value. EPA and DHA status was lower in breast milk in infants in vegetarian mothers than those that were born to omnivore mothers. Suggests that the absence of preformed dietary EPA and DHA and synthesis from linoleic acid is an important process. However, there have been no studies that have investigated the effects of low maternal DHA status in vegetarians, but that's not true because we're moving to this. So in human milk from vegans, vegetarians, and omnivores, the mean percentage in fatty acids was this, but this is the translation. The proportion of DHA in erythrocyte total lipids of infants breastfed by vegans was 1.9% compared to 3.7% from a milk formula and 6.2% in infants fed by omnivores. So omnivores had more than 3 times as much DHA in their breast milk.
Wait, go back. I think you're wrong about the 3 times. So
1.9% versus.
So wait. Let me just read this out. The proportion of DHA in the erythrocyte total lipids of infants breastfed by vegans was 1.9, compared to 3.7. So that's more like 2 times.
No, that's a 3.7 is a milk formula and 6.2 is omnivores.
Oh, wait. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Okay. So women following vegan and vegetarian diets usually have 0.1% or less DHA in their milk. And the real issue with this is...
Okay, so could a vegan
mother just
take a DHA supplement?
I'll answer this as soon as I'm done with my point. With mammary gland appearing to lack mechanism to protect the breastfed infants from maternal dietary deficiency or excessive intakes of unsaturated fatty acids. That answers your question that you just asked. There's no maternal mechanism to protect a baby from a high omega-6 diet. And all plant-based diets have higher levels of linoleic acid. Birth weight, head circumference, and length were lower in the infants born to South Asian vegetarians, even after adjusting for maternal height, duration of gestation, a lot of confounding factors. Improving maternal DHA nutrition decreases the risk of poor infant and child visual and neural development. This is detection of cyanotoxins in algae dietary supplements. So I don't know if you want to take that. How's your kale doing, buddy? We're going to combine that with the algae to make a super toxic algae kale salad. Is that what we can do?
So wait, what's this? Go back to that study.
Hold on, which one?
The one you just showed.
The algae cytotoxin thing?
Yeah, sure.
Well, that's not what's important. That was just a side thing. That's not important.
Well, no, just go back to it.
Sure.
Kale vaults up the... Wait. Oh, there we go. Okay, go up.
Dietary supplements.
Algae dietary supplements are... okay, well, go back.
Hey, you said that was fine. You want to see it or you want to not see it?
Yeah, I want to see it. Okay, these products generally contain non-toxic cyanobacteria, but the methods of cultivation in natural waters without appropriate quality controls allow for contamination by toxin producer species. Okay. All right, so yeah, sometimes...
The main point is that there are many demonstrations that vegans don't have adequate DHA to breastfeed. I mean,
wait. This isn't even DHA supplements. This is algae supplements, like spirulina chlorella.
All algae has cyanotoxins in it, whether it's an
I know. Okay, that's another issue there too, because all algae has toxins in it. Where do fish get their omega-3 fats? Their DHA?
That's why it's important to consume fish that are lower on the food chain but the problem with algae is if it's either at the bottom of the ocean floor or top of the ocean floor, the location is this is a very subjective thing. It depends on where it's grown.
Well, okay, well,
but the overall point is these vegetarians and vegans were deficient. If you could say, oh, they should have taken an algae supplement. Yeah. Oh, these vegans should have taken an algae supplement. Yeah, we have 15 retarded kids walking around. That's okay. That's it.
Yeah, they should have taken a supplement.
They been told that before they were sold the plant-based.
Okay, Frank, how many supplements do you take currently?
If I'm not in the sun, I take D3.
Okay. So you don't have a problem with supplementation if you can't get the nutrients you need?
Well, if you go outside the context of modern eating, if you take a supplement, every single supplement you take increases the risk of inflammation, whether it's from the more you basically one definition of inflammation is anytime you put something in your body, it's inflammatory. The degree of how inflammatory it is varies. The only net level of zero inflammation is fasting. So am I against supplementation? No. But my problem is, even if you did supplement DHA on a vegetarian diet, you still have a high amount of omega-6, which is very inflammatory and dangerous. And most of these vegetarians and vegans are consuming large amounts of linoleic acid, which, as I can show, is a large factor in risk for stroke, especially in the context of B12 deficiencies and high homocysteine.
Okay. So basically, I just want to know the overarching kind of point you're trying to make. So given what you just said, what is your overall dietary recommendation based on, the linoleic acid inflammation? What would you advise somebody to do if they wanted to avoid heart disease and, oxidation from omega-6 fats? What should I do then?
You can't. The most important thing is to not consume seed oils and to get your omega-3 to omega-6 ratios in check.
Okay. So that's it?
I mean, there's a lot of other things from excess calorie and carbohydrate. I mean, that's
okay. Well,
a lot of factors here.
I think we can agree that you shouldn't overeat, but basically what you're saying is you should just avoid basically seed oils. That's the most important issue.
No, but there's factors going into nutrient. This is not. I mean, this is everything I've gone over today, from the lack of availability of EPA DHA causing inflammation. I didn't finish my I didn't finish my argument yet. One other thing that was mentioned, that that in addition to low DHA levels in breast milk was low arachidonic acid levels, and you can obtain arachidonic acid outside of animal foods.
Sorry, low arachidonic acid levels?
Yeah.
Okay, well, isn't that a good thing?
Not quite. So let me explain this.
Well, you know what, Frank? I actually want to bring up a study in opposition to a few of the points you made.
This arachidonic acid, if you don't mind, this arachidonic acid was part of that DHA point that I didn't finish. So I'll just share it real quick, and then I'll share this real quick, and then we can move on to your counter argument. So,
hey, you know, I've got about 10 minutes left. I can give this because I actually have.
Thanks for hanging around.
Hey, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm about to bounce. I got a few minutes left. I don't know if you guys, how many more hours you guys are gonna go.
Yeah, we're not. I don't know. We'll see. But you can bounce whenever. It's okay.
Yeah, it's cool.
But thanks for helping us, Tristan, to whatever degree you consider it. So arachidonic acid is a prostaglandin, and just like cholesterol, prostaglandins mediate inflammation. Arachidonic acid metabolites play a wide range of physiological roles in human health and diseases, aiding in cell proliferation and tissue regeneration, and in the diagnosis of disease progression as well. Metabolites derived from arachidonic acid do not initiate but contribute to inflammation, and most importantly, lead to the generation of mediators responsible for resolving inflammation and wound healing. Critically important for brain rewarding and signaling, motivational processes, emotions, stress responses, pain and energy balance.
Okay, so can you actually show me?
No, I finish this point.
Well, I just want to have this a bit more focused. Can you actually show me data showing that vegans tend to have arachidonic acid levels that are too low?
The main argument is that arachidonic acid in breast milk has shown to be low, and that plant-based foods can't, just like plant-based foods can't raise.
All right, guys. Anyways, I'm out of here. Hey, Richard, thanks. You've been
no problem, man. Thanks for moderating the debate.
Thanks for asking me. You guys take it easy. Best of luck. Peace.
For sure. Okay, well, Frank, the point is, can you actually show me data that demonstrates vegans tend to have arachidonic acid levels that are too low, because your body does actually produce its own arachidonic acid?
The point I'm making is that they're not ideal.
Demonstrate. Okay, where's the evidence for that?
If human breast milk for DHA, for example, varies from 0.06% to 1.4%. Are you going to say that I need to show you evidence that it's important to have DHA in the breast milk? If there's that much.
Well, okay. Well, I'm interested in health outcomes, so yeah, maybe you do want to actually show that.
It's a side point that I'm making. I'm showing arachidonic acid cannot be obtained on a vegan diet, and that vegetarian women had lower arachidonic acid.
Okay, well, yeah, arachidonic acid is found in animal tissue, but you actually produce it yourself.
Let me clarify my point. The arachidonic acid was low in the breast milk, but there was no indication of low tissue levels.
Okay, I'm just wondering, like, the point you're actually trying to make. Like, you just mentioned that arachidonic acid is lower in the breast milk of vegan women. Does that actually result in poor health of the child?
It did. I mean, I can go back to those studies.
Okay, like, I want to see if there's a direct result of having low arachidonic acid and poor health of the child for arachidonic acid specifically.
We could take, this isn't the main point I was making, but if you want to take a look, I can try to find it.
Okay, you know what, like, I do want to address a few of the points you made. So I brought up this study in our previous debate, but it's relevant again. So dietary fats and cardiovascular disease, presidential advisory from the American Heart Association. So basically they took a look at the most recent meta-analyses and randomized trials, and they found that, in summary, randomized controlled trials that lowered intake of dietary saturated fat and replaced it with polyunsaturated vegetable oils reduced CVD by 30%. So based on the most recent randomized control trial data, it's pretty clear that replacing saturated fat with polyunsaturated vegetable fats, even if they're from oils, that seems to have a beneficial effect on cardiovascular disease.
I already explained that.
Well, what do you mean?
When I explained earlier, in the I don't remember the name, the Hart Oslo study, they said that when you follow a diet high in plant oils, it starts turning your lipids into linoleic acid. Initially, that results in a decrease in cholesterol, which results in a decrease in cardiovascular mortality. But it takes years of consuming a high plant-based oil diet to convert the lipids to mostly be composed of linoleic acid to the point where it oxidizes enough to give you a heart attack or stroke.
Okay, that's that you don't have any evidence for that, do you?
I do. If I can, I can explain Seventh-day Adventists and why they have higher heart disease and stroke rates.
Well, they don't.
Well, can I explain?
They have lower risks. They have a lower risk of heart disease and stroke. Yeah, they do.
So
they absolutely do. So if you actually look, at the results from the Adventist cohorts, let's see.
I think I have an Adventist cohort we can look at for myself.
Well, so this is vegetarians. If you go down to the Adventist Health Study 2, yeah, over here. So, oh no, wait, still have to go down. So vegan. So vegans, lowest risk of type 2 diabetes, hypertension. They also had the lowest overall risk of cancer. And if we keep scrolling down, so ischemic heart disease, they had lacto-ovo vegetarians actually beat them out here, but that's only because the female group in the Adventist study had higher rates of ischemic heart disease. But if you take a look at the males, they had by far the lowest risk of ischemic heart disease out of any diet group. So lacto-ovo vegetarians, 0.76, hazard ratio of 0.76, vegans, 0.45.
That's incorrect. Can I have the platform can I explain why?
Go ahead.
Okay. So that's not too relevant here. So this is let me just make sure I get this in the correct order so I don't waste people's times. And don't jump at this. I want to make the point and then you can debunk it at the end. So during follow-up from 1976 through 1988, there were 3,122 deaths, 782 deaths, and this is the Adventist Health Study.
You're not sharing the screen. Can you share the screen?
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me share the screen. I think my chat can see it, but you can't. Okay. The permanent. What's this? Okay. So the Adventist Health Study, 3,122 deaths. 782 from heart disease. That's approximately 25%, which is the same as the general population. But 367 deaths due to stroke, and that is twice as high. Normal stroke rates are around 4 to 5%, and they had a 12% risk of stroke. And here is why.
And can you link these in the chat as you're going through them, just so I can kind of follow along a little easier?
So I mean that's would be a little hard, but I can. So here's the first one. Okay. So this is the third one, fourth one. Okay, so what happens is, and these are the rates. These are just rates of heart disease and stroke. And then here's another study. This is vegetarian diet patterns and mortality in Adventist Health Studies 2. This shows that there is stroke for both sexes was 1.1. It was actually lower in men, but for women, the risk was substantially higher, 1.27. Risk for stroke went up pretty substantially in women. Here's that study. The next point is the relationship of homocysteine with other risk factors. So in the study group, 41.4% of patients were vegetarian. So of ischemic stroke patients, 41.4% of them were vegetarian. And this hyperhomocysteine.
Right, well, we want
the argument group. I'm not done with the argument yet. So here we have effective vegetarian diet on homocysteine levels. Vegetarians have higher and I will get to that later. I have that.
Wait, can you go up a bit? When was the study conducted?
This one is 2002. Okay. This one was 2009. Here we have homocysteine levels in vegetarians versus omnivores. Hyperhomocystinemia is 29 versus 5% in omnivores. Here's another one. Vegetarians develop hyperhomocystinemia, high risk to develop cardiovascular disease. Here's another one. Homocysteine and stroke risk. Increased risk of stroke associated with participants with a genotype with a hazard ratio of 3.1. But the occurrence rate of this genotype was in the majority of the study. I believe it was 75%. And we can look at that if we need to, but that's not in... This is just showing that homocysteine increases risk of stroke. This isn't specifically to vegetarians. So this shows that normal serum levels of B12 do not exclude low tissue levels. This shows that functional cobalamin deficiency can occur at any serum level.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And this shows from veganhealth.org that despite taking a B vitamin supplement, their homocysteine levels were still higher than non-vegetarians. And in the vegans with no B vitamins, it was substantially higher. Now, the problem with this is the mechanism. Homocysteine suppresses nitric oxide production, causes degradation by endothelial cells and platelets, and increases generation of reactive oxygen species, the oxidation we were talking about earlier. It also inhibits glutathione production, an antioxidant, stimulates proliferation of endothelial cells, causing endothelial injury. It's also been shown to inhibit methyl transfers to suppress DNA. That's shown all here. This is actually protein thiolation in cells and plasma. And this is what homocysteine causes through reactive oxygen species. It literally kills the protein cells in your endothelium. And then this is protein homocystylation. Homocystylation of low density lipoproteins, LDLs, increase their susceptibility.
Okay, Frank, okay, like, I don't mean to interrupt you here, but you're going way off topic. So I asked you to show if vegans have a higher risk of heart disease or heart disease mortality, and you're not showing this. You're just talking about B12 and homocysteine.
Yeah, so let me explain the point. So the point here is that vegans and vegetarians have high levels of homocysteine. And high levels of homocysteine cause excessive oxidation in the body. And oxidized LDL is what causes heart disease. Now, in that Adventist study...
Okay, that's a mechanism. That's a mechanism. I asked you to show whether or not vegans have a higher risk of heart disease. You didn't do that. You just talked about B12.
I talked about vegetarians. They have high homocysteine levels and they had higher stroke.
That's not... Okay, well, vegetarians aren't vegans, okay, for one thing. We already know in the Adventist cohort, the Adventist Health Study 2, vegans had lower stroke risk than vegetarians, so I don't know why you'd talk about vegetarians anyway. And the mechanism has nothing to do with this. So I asked you to show whether or not vegans have a higher risk of heart disease or deaths from heart disease, and you didn't do that. You just rambled about B12.
So the reason you're wrong is because I just showed a study showing that Seventh-day Adventists had double the rates of stroke, and I showed a mechanism why.
No, you didn't. Okay, so let's actually take a look. So let's actually take a look at the study. Okay, so in a prospective study with information about lifestyle and reproductive factors, we assessed the relationship between parity and total ischemic heart disease and stroke mortality.
That's not what we're looking at in the study. What we're looking at is the deaths and the deaths due to stroke.
Okay, well, this had... As far as I can tell, this didn't actually have anything to do with whether or not... So first of all, this is dealing with the women in the group, not the men. This is the women in particular. We already know that. So we already know that the women in the group had that's what brought down the average in the vegan group. So I don't know why you're are you a woman, Frank? I don't know why you'd focus on the women. The men did very well. The women did poorly. They were actually looking at whether or not having children affected risk of stroke. And it looks like, so just looking through this very quickly, it looks like after adjustment for educational, there was no relationship with mortality for ischemic heart disease, stroke, in Paris women. So basically what that means is they were just looking at whether or not childbirth affect stroke risk.
I think you missed the point.
What? There is no point here. So, Frank, this didn't even have anything to do with the vegan versus vegetarian group. This is just looking at whether or not the amount of children women had in the study affected stroke risk. So, again, let's just go back to what we were looking at before.
I don't think
Well, no, Frank, let's take a look at what we were looking at before. So the average in the vegan group for ischemic heart disease, it was 0.9, but it was brought down by the women who had a hazard ratio of 1.39. The men had a hazard ratio of 0.45. So I don't know why you'd reference a study on the women in the study. It didn't even separate the vegan, vegetarian, and meat-eating groups. All it did was look at whether or not having children affected heart disease and stroke risk. And look, Frank, the men in the study had the lowest risk of ischemic heart disease. So what point are you even trying to make? I just simply asked you, show me evidence that vegans have a higher risk of heart disease. They don't.
Let me.
All you did was all you talked about was B12.
Let me explain the information again, because it kind of slipped your mind. So, the Seventh-day Adventists having double the risk of stroke, more than double the risk of stroke.
They didn't. No, they didn't. That was looking at the women in the study.
Yeah, looking at the women in the study, they had double the risk of stroke.
Okay, that was the women in the study.
All vegetarians and vegans have elevated homocysteine.
No. Okay, well, okay, so the vegetarians and vegans in the study had elevated homocysteine. The study, when was it? So let's just take a look. No, let's just take a look. 1976 to 1989. We'll just show it again. So 1976 to 1989. How is that information relevant today?
So can we just talk about something that doesn't require studies? Like that you can you actually understand?
No, Frank. So first you claimed that vegans have higher rates of heart disease. I asked you to provide evidence for that.
I didn't say that.
All you did was talk about B12, and you showed one study that was completely irrelevant to the discussion. There was one study that looked at whether or not having children in the Adventist cohorts affected risk of stroke or heart disease. And it looks like, for the most part, it didn't. What the hell does that have to do with your claim that vegans have a higher risk of heart disease? It doesn't. So do you have evidence that vegans have a higher risk of heart disease?
You missed the point. Let me explain this one more time. I will talk very slowly. So when a vegan or vegetarian has high homocysteine levels, that causes reactive oxygen species.
I agree.
That combined with the high omega-6 and inflammatory properties of a vegan diet causes oxidative stress.
Sure. Okay.
Oxidative stress combined with the linoleic acid composition of their LDL particles means that if you want to have a stroke, start drinking vegetable oil.
Good. Okay. We agree there. So we agree there. So Frank, we agree on these two things: elevated homocysteine levels and high linoleic acid intake, very bad for heart disease risk. So do you have any evidence that vegans have a higher risk of heart disease?
Did you say high homocysteine intake?
No, sorry. Did I say that? I said high homocysteine levels. That's what I meant to say.
And every vegan and vegetarian has high homocysteine levels, unfortunately.
Okay, so do you have evidence? Do you have evidence that vegans have higher rates of heart disease?
I have evidence that vegans have high levels of linoleic.
Okay, so you don't actually have evidence that vegans have higher rates of heart disease. So again, let's just go back to the Adventist cohort. Vegan men, at least, the women did poorly in the study. You can make up assumptions why that might be. But the men, at least, they had a hazard ratio for ischemic heart disease of 0.45. They had the lowest risk of ischemic heart disease out of any group in the entire study.
They adjust for confounding factor.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. They absolutely did. So if you actually take a look at the Adventist cohorts, they adjusted for BMI, smoking, education. They accounted for all of these factors.
Can you show that? Can you show that they accounted for sedentary activity? Can you show?
Okay. I can. Yeah, I can. Let's see. So non-vegetarian is the reference group. HR hazard ratio of 1, adjusted by age, race, smoking, exercise, personal income, education level, marital status, alcohol, religion, other cause. Other cause includes non-CVD and non-cancer, so also adjusted by sex, menopause, and hormone therapy. Also adjusted by menopause and hormone therapy. So they adjusted for all of those factors. So what's your excuse there?
Control?
Sorry?
What's the control? Who are they comparing it to?
The meat eaters. Like it said at the very beginning. So I'll just...
Who are these meat eaters?
They're the meat eaters in the study. Non-vegetarian is the reference group.
Meat eaters in the study. Do you know what % of calories Americans consume from animal foods every year?
This is in the Adventist group. So these are the Adventist vegetarians sorry, these were the Adventists who were non-vegetarians that they're comparing them to.
I understand that. I'm asking the meat eaters. This is in America, right? The meat eaters are Americans, right?
So Frank, this is in the Adventist group. So the meat eaters in the study were the Adventists.
Answer the question before I have a stroke, please, like these vegans are. Can you please answer the question?
Okay, can you actually show me that vegans in this study had a higher stroke risk?
I'm trying to make a point.
They didn't.
Can I make my point, please? Can you just answer the question?
What?
Were the meat eaters Americans?
Yes, but they were also Adventists.
Okay. So do you know what % of... Hold on. So meat eating Adventists, what % of what % of animal foods do Adventists eat in their diet?
I don't know. Maybe they go over that in the study.
Yeah. What the point is, you're saying that people who consume what type of meat? What's the reference for meat? What are you talking about? You don't have the context of the diet. Let me make an example.
Well, Frank, they eat better than the average American. I can tell you that. And look, they adjusted for all of these relevant factors. They adjusted for age, race, smoking, exercise, personal income.
Sardinia. Are you familiar with the Sardinians? Are you familiar?
Okay, so Frank, no, we were discussing whether or not vegans have a higher risk of heart disease or stroke. You didn't provide evidence for that, and now you're talking about the Sardinians. What the hell does that have to do with anything?
It does, but you're not letting me speak. So these Sardinians consume 30% of their calories from animal foods and 70% of their calories from plant foods, and they live a long-ass time, probably longer than I want to be around. Now, what's interesting is that the Americans consume 30% of their calories from animal foods and 70% of their calories from plant foods. So why aren't the Americans living to 100?
Because they're eating processed garbage.
Yes. Now, since they are eating processed garbage, it's safe to say that the amount of animal foods versus plant foods in the diet is not the factor. It is the processed garbage.
Okay, so Frank, can you prove to me that the Adventist meat eaters in the study, and this was adjusted for age, sex, BMI, everything, can you actually prove to me that they were eating more garbage and that was actually the cause of them having higher heart disease rates?
Can you link me the study so I can take a quick look?
Yeah, sure. And Frank, you should, like, if you're going to be talking about the Sardinians, can you actually show me that there's no association between meat intake or animal product intake or saturated fat intake among the Sardinian population and risk of heart disease?
The only thing you can really look at there is a basic chart of, I don't have any studies, but you can pretty much look at, they consume about 30% of their calories from high saturated fat animal foods. And
okay, so is there an association between high saturated fat animal foods in the Sardinian population and risk of cardiovascular disease?
Well, let me get this straight. You think someone went over to Sardinia, did a study on them, and compared the percentages of, I mean, if you could find that study, that'd be great.
Okay, so you're just making meaningless claims.
I mean,
like, look, you need to have granularity in a data set. Just because you can find a population that eats a relatively high proportion of their diet from animal products and they have low cardiovascular disease risk, that doesn't actually mean the animal products in their diet aren't increasing their cardiovascular disease risk. It just might mean that other lifestyle factors contribute to low overall disease risk.
What period of time was this done over?
So the Adventist Health Study 2, I think, began in the 80s.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so that's lower. So female vegans all-cause mortality actually have higher mortality than lacto-ovo, and then all cancer is higher in vegan. Ischemic heart disease is higher in vegan.
All-cause cancer was lowest in vegan males, but it was the women, again, they brought up the average. So, okay, wait, let me share the screen again. Because
no, hold on.
no, I'll share the screen again because you're making things a little confusing. So if you look at all-cause mortality,
Okay, so
vegans had the lowest risk of all. So wait.
Here's why.
Look at all-cause mortality. Vegans had the lowest risk of all-cause mortality at 0.85. Lacto-ovo vegetarians 0.91. And of course, the meat eaters in the study, they had an HR of 1.
You have statistical outliers here.
What?
You have drastic statistical outliers here.
What?
For ischemic heart disease and cardiovascular disease,
Okay.
that brought down the all-cause mortality drastically. There's actually increased rates of certain diseases in the vegans than the people that were eating meat.
Frank, it's all-cause mortality, so it's factoring in everything. But all-cause mortality was lowest in the vegans. Yes, it was higher in certain things. But it seems to be the females bringing down the average.
Say the confounding factors.
Okay, what do you mean? This was adjusted for these factors.
Yeah, but what were
like, it's right in here. It's literally right in here. These are the factors that were adjusted for. So what do you? Yes, they did take into account confounding factors for the 5th time. It's right here. You can read it out if you want.
Confounders are. What are what's their model? What are the confounders of the study?
What do you mean? This is what they adjusted for. These are the confounding factors that they adjusted for. Race, smoking, exercise, personal income, education, marriage status, alcohol, religion, like all. I don't know what you want from them.
They accounted for exercise?
Yes, they did. It's right there. Race, smoking, exercise, personal income, education, marital status, alcohol, religion, and they go on. There's more. There's hormone therapy, menopause, things like that. Okay, so Frank, let's just go through this list again. So all-cause mortality, both men and women, it was 0.85. So vegans still had the lowest all-cause mortality risk out of any diet group. For the men, it was 0.72. For the women, it was 0.97. The vegetarian women fared better at 0.94, but the vegan women still did better than the meat-eating group at 0.97.
This is what.
So look, we go to all cancer. So both men and women combined, they had an all-cancer risk of hazard ratio of 0.92. The vegetarians, men and women together, had a hazard ratio of 0.9. Both of these did better than the meat-eating group, but the vegans did worse than the vegetarians. But if you look at the men in the study, they had a hazard ratio of 0.81 for all cancer. And the vegetarians...
Give me 1 minute. Give me 1 minute.
The vegetarian men, they actually did worse than the meat-eaters. So the men in the vegan group did really well here. The women didn't do so well. Again, hazard ratio is 0.9.
You know, these people are lacto-ovo vegetarians. They're not meat eaters. You're talking about lacto-ovo vegetarians, right? Not meat eaters.
Lacto-ovo vegetarian is right here. Vegan is right here. And HR, this is the meat eater group right here. That's the HR.
Okay, so let me explain this. So cancer goes up in vegans.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Look at the fucking. Are you looking at my screen? Am I screen sharing right now?
No, it's my screen. So look, we're looking at the same chart. Vegans 0.92 for all cancers. Vegetarians 0.9 for all cancers, but the men in the vegan group, it was 0.81. For the vegetarian men, they did really poorly. They actually had a higher cancer risk compared to the meat eaters.
I'm a little bit confused. I think we're looking at the same chart here. Cancer 0.92 goes up.
What are you looking at?
Look at the chart. Look at this chart. Beyond Meatless, table 8. Are you looking at table 8?
Table 8, right here.
All-cause mortality goes down in vegans.
Yeah, all-cause mortality.
All cancer goes up. Heart disease goes up. Cardiovascular disease
What do you mean? What do you mean it goes up? No, Frank, what do you mean all cancer goes up?
It goes up. It's going up, boys. And it's going.
What do you mean all cancer is going up? What do you mean by that?
What is other cause mortality?
I don't know what they meant by other causes.
Down your all-cause mortality statistic, because vegans are dropping dead of strokes and heart attacks, evident by the data you provided with me.
What are you talking about? The vegan men had the lowest risk of ischemic heart disease. So what are you talking about? And both men and women combined, vegan group had the lowest risk of all-cause mortality.
Ischemic heart. You're all right. I think I've beaten this to death. I'm losing my mind.
Frank, do you have like a learning disability or a reading comprehension problem?
Are you making retarded people? Are you discriminating against retarded people?
No, I'm just asking, do you honestly have a problem with reading? Like, have you had issues with reading before?
Are you discriminating against retarded people?
No, I'm asking you if you do have a learning disability that makes it hard for you to read.
Apparently you do, because you don't understand what a fucking mechanism is. Oh my God. Okay.
We're not talking about mechanism. We're talking about whether or not vegans have a higher risk of heart disease, and they don't, according to the Adventist Health Study.
Can we debate something fun for a few minutes and call it a day?
Frank, can you show me evidence that vegans have a higher risk of heart disease than meat eaters?
Let's make a guess.
No, we're not guessing. Can you show me evidence that vegans have a higher risk of heart disease than meat eaters?
I want to know, how many months would it take to grow a cauliflower the size of my head versus your head?
Okay, Frank. So, Frank, you claim that vegans have a higher risk of heart disease and stroke compared to meat eaters. Where's the evidence for that?
This is like, do I have to explain my whole argument again?
Okay, so you claimed that vegans have higher rates of heart disease and stroke compared to meat eaters. Where's the evidence for that?
I have a learning disability and you're discriminating against me, but unfortunately...
So you do actually have a learning disability? Like, I'm actually honestly asking that. I'm not trying to be rude or mean. I'm just, like, look, I don't want to actually keep debating you if you genuinely have a learning disability and you can't understand the things you're reading.
Let me tell you something. If I have a learning disability, you should be in preschool. Okay.
Okay, so good. So Frank, you claimed that vegans have higher rates of heart disease and stroke compared to meat eaters. Do you have any data supporting that claim?
That's not, I've never said that. That's not what I claimed. I claimed a bunch of things that correlate to that through mechanisms, but that's not what I claimed. And
okay, so you don't have any evidence showing that vegans have higher rates of heart disease and stroke.
ISM mechanism.
Okay, so you don't have any evidence that vegans have higher rates of heart disease or stroke? Yes or no? That's a yes or no answer.
Compared to who?
Compared to meat eaters.
Who are meat eaters?
Just in the U.S. population, or in the Adventist population. Doesn't matter.
Well, there were no meat eaters. There were lacto-ovo vegetarians, so that doesn't really count.
Yes, there were. Okay, let's go back. No. Let's go back. No, let's go back. You're lying again. So look, it says it right here. Non-vegetarian is the reference group. Non-vegetarians eat meat. So the reference group is right here. They have an HR of 1. So yes, they're comparing. So these hazard ratios are based off of comparing them to non-vegetarians, which are meat eaters.
But what your study is saying is it's essentially better to be a lacto-ovo vegetarian for heart disease than a vegan.
No, it's not. Okay, let's go back and let's take a look at it. So you're lying again. No, you're lying again. So look, ischemic heart disease overall. So overall hazard ratio for both men and women was 0.9. But in the vegan group, the vegan women brought down the average. In men, it was 0.45. So if you're a man and you're vegan in this Adventist study, you have by far the lowest risk of ischemic heart disease out of any diet group. And for cardiovascular disease in males, again, hazard ratio of 0.45. So again, if you're a vegan male, you have by far the lowest risk of cardiovascular disease. For whatever reason, the women in the study were bringing down the average, so you're lying.
Oh my God, this is ridiculous. Look, the vegans had higher rates of heart disease than—
No, they didn't. No, you're lying again. So no,
drink that milk, boy. Drink that milk.
Look at it again. So look, the vegan males had an ischemic heart disease risk of 0.45.
Drink the milk.
Okay, so
above it, buddy.
Saying a hazard ratio of 0.76 is better than a hazard ratio of 0.45, Frank?
Inflammation from your omega-6 is swelling your eyelids shut.
So you're saying a hazard ratio of 0.76 is more desirable than a hazard ratio of 0.45. Is that what you're claiming?
You're picking picking one metric and look at the one below it. Females 1.39.
Are you a woman, Frank? Are you a woman, Frank? So does that data, like, is that particularly concerning for you?
Richard, I am genuinely curious how you have not—
Are you a woman, Frank? So are you particularly concerned with that data because it might affect you personally?
How have you not been banned from YouTube between the making fun of gay people and the making fun of women? I honestly want to know.
So let's take a look at the study again because you're being dishonest here. If you actually look in all groups, in both the vegetarian and vegan groups, The women in both groups actually did more poorly than the men in both groups. It's just that in the vegan group it was more exaggerated.
That's what I.
In both groups, the women did poor.
Okay. Can we please move on to something else? I'm getting crazy here.
Okay, Frank, do you have any evidence that vegans have higher rates of heart disease and strokes compared to non-vegetarians, so meat eaters?
I think that if you went on a vegan diet temporarily, it would reduce your risk of stroke in probably the next 5 or so years, and then your LDL would turn into pure linoleic acid.
Do you have any evidence for that? So do you have any follow-up studies that had 5-10 years of follow-up where the vegans started having higher rates of heart disease, strokes compared to non-vegetarians, so meat eaters?
You do understand.
Okay, you made a claim. No, you made the claim that after 5 or 10 years of being vegan, you're going to have a higher risk of heart disease and stroke compared to meat eaters. Do you have any evidence for that claim?
What's the claim I made?
You claimed that after 5 or more years, if you stay vegan, your LDL is going to become oxidized or whatever, and that will give you a higher risk of heart disease and stroke compared to meat eaters. Do you have any evidence for that claim?
I explained that already.
One single study that has 5 or more years of follow-up where the vegans in the study had higher risk of stroke or heart disease.
I explained that already. Is your dementia kicking in again?
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You just showed a bunch of stuff about B12 and homocysteine.
It doesn't matter. Oh man, you guys are making me go crazy. Can we move on to something else before?
No, because you're lying. So you made the claim that vegans have a higher risk of heart disease and stroke compared to meat eaters. You have no evidence for that claim. According to the Adventist health studies, vegans have the lowest risk of heart disease, especially the males. For whatever reason, the women in the study didn't do too well, but for men, the men in the study had much lower risk of heart disease.
Okay, I am okay with ending this here and letting the audience determine the victor. Unless you want
to, you're going to run away because I caught you in a corner and you're embarrassed.
Well, let people determine whether it's a corner or not. That's up to you.
Okay, well, Frank, you made multiple claims. You can't provide evidence for your claims, and now you're trying to run away, switch topics, or just quit the debate.
No, that's actually what you've been doing the whole debate, and I think anyone who
Okay, so Frank, I'm asking you a very direct question. You made the claim, you just made it 5 minutes ago, that if you stay vegan for 5 or more years, you're going to have an increased risk of heart disease and stroke. Do you have any evidence for that claim?
Do we have to explain?
Okay, so you have no evidence for that claim. Do you want to move on to a different topic?
If you keep interrupting what I'm saying, I can't actually finish.
Cool. Okay, so do you have any evidence for that claim? Yes or no? And if you do, then you shouldn't be talking. You should just be bringing up the study.
A study. Okay, so let me explain this again. So, as evident by you not understanding.
Okay, so right, you don't have evidence.
You're just gonna keep interrupting me, so I can't talk.
Frank, no, it's a yes or no question. Do you have evidence that if you stay vegan for 5 or more years, you have an increased risk of heart disease or stroke? And show me the study. It's a yes or no question. If yes, show me the study. I don't want to hear you ramble. You're just wasting my time.
If you guys are calling, what's more childish? The reason I'm acting childish is because you keep fucking interrupting me and won't.
No, you keep not answering my question.
You literally won't let me answer.
How can I fucking answer if you won't let me? You won't answer the question. It's a yes or no question. Do you have evidence for your claim? Yes or no? If you have evidence, then show me the study.
I understand it's hard for you to find headphones that fit that globe you have there, but are they impeding your hearing?
If you have evidence, then provide the study. If not, then let's just move to a different topic, or maybe you'd prefer to end the debate since it's not like you're coming up with any evidence for your claims anyway.
As I said, I explained this about an hour and a half ago. If you want me to explain it again, I can explain it again.
You have evidence for your claims, yes or no? If you do have evidence for your claims, present the study. If not, then we can move to a different topic. Or if you're not interested in doing that, then we can end the debate because you're not coming up with arguments anyway.
Richard, if you would like to stop interrupting me and let me talk.
It's a yes or no question. It's a yes or no question. If yes, then provide the evidence. It's as simple as that. I won't interrupt you if you stop wasting my time. Do you have evidence for your claims? Yes or no?
I said yes.
If you have evidence for your claims, then your mouth should stay shut until there's a study on the screen.
Let's explain it again. Okay.
No. Your mouth stays shut until there's a study on the screen.
Mouth stays shut until there's a study on the screen. So let's explain this whole process again, gentlemen.
No. Study on the screen, show it. You made the claim that vegans have higher rates of heart disease and stroke, especially after 5 years of follow-up. So show the study, show the research. Your mouth should stay shut until there's research on the screen.
Okay, let's go through it again, ladies and gentlemen. So, the evidence from clinical studies. It has been demonstrated earlier that patients who consume food...
Okay, this is okay. No. You already showed this. This has nothing to do with your claims. This has nothing to do with your claim. Vegans have higher rates of heart disease and stroke.
I get where you come
from. Nothing to do with your claim that vegans have higher rates of heart disease and stroke. So all you're doing is wasting my time. You're just rambling about bull crap because I caught you in a corner. You made a claim that you can't back up with evidence. So you're not going to waste my time. Should I just end the debate here because you're just going to continually waste my time? Look, Frank, there's two ways out of it. You can admit you were wrong. You can admit you were wrong, or you can just leave. Okay? Admit you're wrong or leave.
You're completely ridiculous.
Admit you're wrong or leave. You claimed that vegans have a higher risk of heart disease or stroke, especially after 5 years of follow-up. So either present that evidence or just admit you were wrong. You made a false claim that you couldn't
present the evidence, and as soon as I bring up the first fucking page, you don't even let me say a word. What you're doing
absolutely nothing to do with your claim. Show us
what you're doing is you are saying I am wrong, and then when I go to explain myself, you won't let me talk. Holy shit. I'm not doing this without a moderator. This is over. You don't understand what it is.
Good. Well, thank you, Frank. Thank you for running away. You won't admit you're wrong, so you just run away. So goodbye.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I gotta go change my phone.
Run away. I caught you. Okay, good. Bye. So that was fucking hilarious. Yeah, I basically expected that outcome. I was starting to get a little irritated there because he was just completely wasting my time. So there's a number of oh my god, the chat's exploding. So yeah, basically at the very end there, Frank claimed that vegans have higher rates of heart disease and stroke, especially after 5 years of follow-up. The thing is, he doesn't have evidence for that claim. All he did was relied on some mechanistic data where he claimed vegans have higher intake of linoleic acid. But he didn't actually show that results in negative health outcomes for vegans. I showed him the results from the Adventist mortality studies. Vegan men had by far the lowest risk of heart disease. And even across both genders, vegans had the lowest risk of all-cause mortality. So for him to claim that a vegan diet will just massively increase disease risk, that's just nonsense. A lot of his claims about linoleic acid are dubious at best. Like some of the claims he made, he was talking about conversion rates of alpha linoleic acid, and that somehow increases omega-6 levels. It made no sense. I don't think he doesn't even have a basic understanding of any of these topics. So yeah, and I actually got him to admit that LDL plays a direct causal role in heart disease risk. So he definitely lost that debate. Whether he wants to talk about mechanisms or not, it doesn't matter. LDL plays a causal role in heart disease risk. The higher your LDL cholesterol level is, the greater your risk of heart disease. If you can maintain a very low LDL cholesterol score, below 70 milligrams per deciliter or lower is ideal, then you have virtually zero risk of heart disease. And on top of that, it's very clear that replacing saturated fat with polyunsaturated plant fats, that's ideal for reducing heart disease risk. And vegans have the lowest risk of heart disease by far. So that basically sums up my whole position. Frank wasn't able to adequately debate his points. And I caught him making up complete and utter horseshit lies. He claimed that vegans will end up having higher rates of heart disease and stroke. When I asked him to actually show me the data, he didn't. He just rambled. He tried to move on to a different topic. He tried to bring up older studies he referenced, which had nothing to do with that claim. So he was just completely wasting my time. I didn't let him waste my time. And I caught him in a corner, and then he got frustrated, and he just rage quit. So That's basically what happened. Okay, so we got a bunch of super chats here, so I'm just gonna go through the super chats. Let's see. Kirk. So sorry, Kerwamajakabane donated $8.99 PLN. He says, "Oh yes, do it. Got cringe glasses on." Well, I guess you're talking about when Frank did his intro. I agree, that was incredibly cringy, but it was glorious. But thanks for the donation. I'm just gonna call you Kerwam. Nils Jan donated $5. He says, "I disagree with Primal Edge Health on a lot of things, but I respect him overall, unlike Sean Baker, Sverige, and Frank." Well, you know, the one debate I had with Primal Edge Health, he was being a jackass, but you know what? He apologized, and he's been really polite so far. So yeah, I respect Primal Edge Health a lot more than Frank. At least Primal Edge, he'll admit when he's wrong and he'll apologize. Frank, he'll just keep lying endlessly. He'll try to turn things into a complete joke. So, but thanks for the donation, Nils. Veggies for Thought donated $2. He said, "I'm expecting the civility of the Bart K debate." Well, sorry, I destroyed your expectations. Wasn't quite so civil. But thanks for the donation, Veggies. Linda Gillespie donated £2. She didn't have anything to say, but I appreciate the donation, Linda. Mr. Chaz donated $1.99. He asks, "Can you do a stream where you three watch hentai?" No, I can't watch hentai on YouTube through a live stream because of community guidelines. If there was a streaming platform where I can watch hentai and stream, I might be into that. It's not like I'm going to jerk off while I'm watching the hentai, but I think it'd be funny to do commentary on it. So if you can tell me about a streaming platform where you can do that, then maybe I'd be interested. But YouTube, not going to happen. But thanks for the donation, Mr. Chaz. Casperch donated 20 DKK. He asks, he says, "Tip for sitting out that intro, Tristan equals vegan." Well, thanks, Casperch. It was cringy, but I mean, I'm kind of used to the Frank Tufano cringe. I've seen a fair amount of his content, so probably doesn't affect me as much as other people. I've been pretty desensitized at this point. Jason's Journey donated $2. He says $2 doll hairs to my vegan guy. Well, appreciate the donation, Jason. Kerwim Max Jabane donated another $8.99. He says, Frank, listen, counter 5. Yeah, I had to say that quite a lot. Frank really tends to ramble about multiple topics all at once. He won't make any good solid point. He'll basically go through like 10 studies, maybe 2 or 3 of them have any relevance to the original topic, and the rest, they have a weak association with each other. And like, I had to stop him a few times, like, okay, Frank, you're making multiple different points on multiple different topics. And then when I tried to explain things to him, he just wouldn't listen. And yeah, but thanks for the donation, Kerwamek Jibane. Veggies for Thought donated another $2. He says, almost 3 strikes, Frank won't be a nice person anymore. Yeah. Veggies donated another $5. He says, Frank, do 2 things. Let Richard respond to your points and answer his questions. Stop trying to change the topic when he questions you / you're wrong. He did that so many times. When I was questioning him and he couldn't come up with a response, he'd just say, okay, can we move to a different topic? I'm done talking about this. Like, and you could see how uncomfortable he was getting too. So yeah, but at the very end, I caught him there. And then when I caught him, he just totally rage quit. So, but thanks for the donations, Veggie. Lydia Shadden donated $2. She says, fruit is different than processed food. Yeah, I can't believe I actually had to argue that with Frank, where he was claiming fructose from fruit will have the same effect, will basically increase your risk of Alzheimer's disease. Just bizarre. I've never seen any research ever showing fruit increases risk of Alzheimer's. So Frank tries to make he tries to make what he'll do is he'll find one study, and because there's this one thing in one study, there's some mechanistic evidence that this may be the case. He tries to make this broad, overarching assumption that just makes no sense. But yeah, that's his whole shtick. But thanks for the donation, Lydia. Varbest donated £2. He asks, vegan gains, please come on the Mumkey Jones interview show, ? I'd be down. If Mumkey Jones wants to interview me, just have him send me an email, either to my business email or message me on Twitter. I'd be down. But thanks for the donation, Varbes. Cass Birch donated 20 DKK. He says, ticket proof for Richard's gun show. So I think you mean, oh, I see. You meant when I lifted my arms up. Gun show. But thanks for the donation, Cass Birch. Kika Ogbetchi donated $5. He says, damn, Richard, those biceps got me nosebleed. Jasmine, I am low-key jealous of you, babe. You get to sleep every night with that tank. Well, thanks for the compliment, Kika. I've been training pretty damn hard, and yeah, I've gotten a lot bigger. But I appreciate the donation. Natalie Greco donated $20. She asks, have mercy on my brain cells, please, I'm dying. Yeah, that got pretty stupid at certain points there, especially towards the end. It got pretty retarded. I could see just how uncomfortable Frank was getting when I kept pressing him to provide evidence for his claim. And yeah, then he just ended up rage quitting. But thanks for the donation, Natalie. Veggies for Thought donated another $5. He says, best debate ever. Holy smokes. I love how Frank can't stay on topic and asks to change topics when he realizes he's wrong. Beautifully done, Richard. Well, thanks, Veggies. I knew, I don't know what Frank was expecting, but I knew this would happen. I know the exact arguments Frank is going to make. And, big surprise, Frank made claims he has no evidence for. And then when I pressed him, to provide evidence for his claims, he just makes up a bunch of excuses, tries to go off topic, and then he rage quits. This is the exact same thing that's happened in every other debate. And it's the same thing that happens even in his own videos. I have arguments with him in the comment section, and then he gets proven wrong, and then he just ignores me. So I don't know what Frank was expecting here. But thanks for the donation, Veggies. CLMF donated $1.99. He asks, how does it feel to lose even when you have help? Yeah, so apparently for this debate, Primal Edge wasn't helping Frank out. That's what he promised not to do. I don't really care. Frank can get whatever help he wants during a debate. He really does need it. And I don't mean this to be rude to Frank. I honestly think he probably has a learning disability. Just his reading comprehension skills are so damn low. He tends to refer to research that actually goes against his claims. And when things are just very plainly there, it's very clearly explained, he just can't comprehend what he's reading. I think I'm pretty much done debating Frank. I'm convinced now he has a learning disability, and I don't mean that as any disrespect to Frank. It's just really, I'm just not going to debate him anymore because, I'm beating up on somebody who can't really defend themselves. So I think I'm done. But thanks for the donation, CLMF. Ant-Man donated $1.99. He says, I want to be a vegan after listening to Frank. Yeah, that's just the intro, that cringy intro alone, I think turns people vegan. It's yep, I'm just going to eat plants because I had to listen to that. But thanks for the donation, Ant-Man. Gleb Karpov donated 200 rubles, RUB. He says, did Frank just say that alpha linoleic acid is omega-6? Yes, he did. I think I pointed that out a few times, asking, Frank, what the hell are you talking about? Alpha linoleic acid doesn't convert to omega-6. And then he gave some weird explanation for it, like because alpha linoleic acid doesn't have a high conversion rate to DHA, that causes a buildup of omega-6. It made no sense. I don't think Frank knows what omega-3, omega-6, DHA, EPA, any of this stuff is. So yeah, it's very odd listening to him. Again, I think he may have a learning disability, so it's become really clear now that there's just no point debating him anymore. But thanks for the donation, Gleb. Vinland donated 10 ARS. He didn't have anything to say, but appreciate the donation, Vinland. Strong Chad donated $5. He says, "Damn mascara on point today, Frank." Yeah, he actually did have pretty good makeup on today. He should probably just change his channel to a makeup channel. Like it's a simpler topic anyway, and he seems to be interested in beauty, so I think he should actually just change his channel into a makeup channel, and that might also be a way into the entertainment industry for him. He has said that he wants to be like famous, become an actor, so he should actually study being a makeup artist. Like I don't think that's a bad career path for him. But thanks for the donation, Strong Chad. Dowsy donated $2. He says, Dunning-Kruger, Frank, he's making people go vegan. Yeah, honestly. He has to be one of the biggest victims of the Dunning-Kruger effect if he was willing to debate me for a third time. I was really, really surprised he agreed to do this debate for the third time. It was weird. But yeah, I think this is the last debate I'm going to have with Frank. It's just a total waste of time. But thanks for the donation, Dowsy.
You did really good.
Yeah, thanks.
Good job staying calm.
Yeah.
I made a straw poll seeing who won and who didn't. I just posted in chat and 90% says you won.
Yeah. Sean Forrest donated £2. He asks, Jason Blaha, worst of the fitness industry. I don't know. So look, I was planning on making a worst of the fitness industry on Jason Blaha. For one thing, YouTube has changed their community guidelines, so it's a little like on the topics I'd cover in that worst of the fitness industry, it would kind of maybe go against the guidelines. I'd have to be really careful with what I say in that video. And on top of that, Jason likes to file false DMCA claims against people who criticize him. So that would also kind of be a little bit of a risk, but maybe because I have a bigger channel, I'd be a little safe from that, but who knows? So I've been thinking about it, but it seems a little too risky. I'm gonna put it on the back burner for right now, but it might come eventually. But thanks for the donation, Sean. Jesus donated $2. He says, I love you and Frank. Well, you know what? Like, say what you will about Frank, but his memes and cringiness has given me some good material to work with in terms of entertainment. So I could understand how some people love him. But thanks for the donation, Jesus. Strong Chad donated $5. He said, okay, so the point, let me clarify the point of this. I'm going to explain my point. My point is that I'm trying to get to the point, so let me explain. Yeah, he never made any point. It's very, very weird and jarring just listening to him try to make sense of anything. He just rambles incoherently, and then no point is made. And then when you ask him about something, he's like, I already made my point. I didn't get it. And then when he keeps saying, I'll get to my point, I'll get to my point, there's no point. He just rambled. But thanks for the donation, Strong Chad. Dark Night Me donated 100 rupees, I think that is. He says, all that carnism didn't seem to help Frank's brain any bit. Yeah, I don't mean to insult anyone's cat, but I don't see a correlation between meat eating and intelligence. So yeah, eating, an all meat diet, it's not helping Frank's debate skills at all. But thanks for the donation, Dark Knight Me. Aaron T donated $1.99. He says omega-6 is inflammatory, is a carnist. So the thing is, yeah, I agreed with Frank that too much omega-6 is inflammatory. So what's the problem with just reducing your omega-6 fat intake? Frank couldn't really give a good answer for that. And that doesn't actually disprove my point that LDL cholesterol plays a causal role in heart disease risk. So yeah, nothing Frank said made any sense, but thanks for the donation, Aaron. Sirs, so Serious Business donated 666 PLN, Mark of the Beast. I didn't have anything to say, but I appreciate the satanic donation. Grimlock donated $5. He says, carnist incel versus vegan shad. Yeah, I don't know if Frank is an incel. Probably is, if I had to guess, but who knows? But yeah, that's kind of how it happened. But thanks for the donation, Grimlock. Nick Castillo donated $2. He says, Frank, let me just make my point to Tufano. I let him make a point. He just didn't ever end up making a point. He's just said nonsense the entire time. But thanks, Nick. Strong Chad donated $5. He says, doesn't require studies, LMFAO. I think at the end there, I asked him to provide research, and then he said something along the lines of, I don't need to show studies. Like, yes, you do. If you're going to make a claim, you need to provide research, like evidence for that claim. So I don't know why he expected everyone to just take him on his word. But thanks again, Strong Chad. Veggies for Thought donated $5. He says, I love you pointing out Frank changing topics and how his evidence doesn't support his claims. You're doing it throughout the whole debate. Fantastic. Yeah. Like we've been through this before, like 2 other times now. This is the 3rd time this has happened. I don't know why Frank thought this sort of tactic would work. I don't let him change tactics. I force him to provide evidence. So I don't know why he thought this whole, let's just change the topic. Let's ignore everything. I don't need to provide evidence. I don't know why he thought that would work. But thanks for the donation, Veggies. Adam Spy donated €2.29. He says, greetings from Germany. Vegan Gains killing it again. Well, thank you, Adam. I'd like to have some, stronger debate opponents. I offered to debate Lane Norton, who actually has a PhD in nutrition, but he declined. And I think it's pretty obvious why. I made a video about him that was really critical about his diet and some of the claims he was making. And Lane just refused to debate me. So I think it's pretty obvious why. No matter who it is, the evidence just isn't on their side if they're going to argue that meat and animal products are healthy for you. So whether it's Frank Tufano or somebody with a PhD, look, the evidence just isn't on your side. At this point, it's pretty cut and dry that a vegan diet is ideal for human health, especially when it comes to heart disease and diabetes and cancer. But thanks for the donation, Adam. Chickpeas donated $5. He says, it must be hard staying so calm. I only started to get frustrated at the end because Frank was just so frantically trying to make distractions, change topics. He just wouldn't make any kind of valid response. I asked him a very direct question. It was really simple too. It was a yes or no question. When people can't just answer yes or no questions, that's when I start getting pissed off. So I was starting to get frustrated towards the end, but I kept my cool. But yeah, that's the only thing that really pisses me off during a debate, when people just won't answer yes or no questions and you're just totally wasting my time. But I knew I was winning. There's no reason to get too pissed off about it. But thanks for the donation, chickpeas. Jalen Rowe donated $2. He says, "Damn, Frankie, it be like that sometimes." Yeah, he was live streaming this on his channel too. I'm actually kind of interested to see. I wonder if he has like a post-debate kind of chat. Let's see. Let's see what's going on with him right now. Frank Tufano, round 3. Oh, look, yeah, I'll share what he's doing right now. It's pretty funny. So people in his chat are talking about lipstick, how they like tank tops. Okay, this is, yeah, I don't know what they're doing here. But yeah, Frank is still streaming right now. Kind of weird. I don't know what I'd be embarrassed. I'd like run and hide in my room and maybe cry a bit after that. But thanks for the donation though, Jalen. Megatai donated $4.99. He says, "Frank, vegans have the lowest rates of heart disease and diabetes. I am autistic, and even Frank is too autistic for me." Yeah, vegans have the lowest risk of chronic disease. So for Frank to claim that vegans have a higher disease risk, it's just totally batshit insane. And then when I ask him to provide evidence for this, he just shows stuff about homocysteine levels. It doesn't actually provide evidence for his claims. And then when I pressed him on that, he just rage quit. So, like, he knows he's wrong. I don't even think this has anything to do with him just being not particularly intelligent. He just knows he's wrong. He just doesn't have the honesty and strength of character to admit he's wrong. But thanks for the donation, Megatai. Colby Murray donated $2. He says, "Frank uses duck butter for his toast." That's really, really gross. I think he does actually eat foie gras, like the weird duck fat liver crap. I don't think he eats toast, though. Pretty sure he doesn't eat any bread, as far as I know. But he could be lying. Like, I know Frank does lie a lot about his diet. He's lied about how long he's been on the carnivore diet and stuff. So he might actually be eating some of these plant foods relatively regularly. Like, and he does eat honey as a sweetener. So yeah, maybe he is eating toast. I'm not sure. But thanks for the donation, Colby. Strong Chad donated $5. Oh shit. Okay, there we go. Strong Chad donated $5. He says, "Keep going, Frank. You got him on the ropes, bud. You're killing it." Yeah, he should have just ran away. I don't know why he did this debate again. Maybe, I don't know who was encouraging him to do this, or why he thought he'd end up doing well. I don't know. I don't know what made him think this was a good idea. But thanks again, Strong Chad. Nick Castillo donated $2. He said, "Richard, do you have a learning disability, Burgess?" Nick donated another $5. He says, "F in the chat for Frank, guys. March 23rd, 2019, he died trying to make his point." Yeah, just, man, I'm not trying to be mean to Frank when I asked if he has a learning disability. Like, I honestly wanted to know that because I felt like we should just end the debate here if Frank just doesn't have the mental capacity to read and understand these things. But yeah, thanks again for the donations, Nick. Grimlock donated $2. He says, "Rest in pieces, Frank Tufano." Yeah, many, many, many pieces. But thanks, Grimlock. Strong Chad donated $5. He says, "It's a corner." I don't know so I don't know the context of that one, but thanks again, Strong Chad. Emin Iblaze donated $2. He says, "Have a poll while still live to see who won." Yeah, I think Jasmine made a straw poll. 90% of people thought I won. Thanks, Emin. Nick Castillo donated another $2. Yeah, he says, "Cucked in the chat, boys." Yeah. Frank got ratioed pretty damn hard, even on his live stream, actually. Let me screen share again. Oh, it's not letting me. Oh, there we go. Yeah, even on Frank's live stream, he's 78 dislikes to 288 likes. So that's kind of unusual for his live streams. Even among his fans weren't too happy for his performance. Nick Castillo donated $2. Sorry, I already read that one. Brian Avery donated $19.99. He said, Richard, do you find your tactics towards the end to become badgering/bullying in nature? It's not bullying, and it's not like badgering or bullying in nature. Look, Frank made a claim, and I was asking evidence for his claims. He wouldn't answer, so I just really pressed hard for him to answer that question. That's just what you're supposed to do in a debate. If your debate opponent is cornered, can't answer a question adequately, or is dodging a question, you have to keep pressing that point. And you either have to basically do what I did, just totally embarrass them, make it very obvious that they can't answer that question, that they're either being dishonest, they lied, or they just don't have evidence for their claim, or get your debate opponent to admit they're wrong. And
Frank was the one who's bullying. He kept going to personal attacks, and he does this with every single debate he does. He always does personal attacks, and then he's complaining that you bullied him when you make him answer a yes or no question.
Yeah, I mean, Frank has made fun of my wife. He's told me to like suck his cock. He said nasty things to me, so I'd consider that bullying. But me asking him to answer a question, that's definitely not bullying. So yeah, but thanks for the big donation, Brian. Really appreciate it. Chris Grant donated £2. He says, Frank Tufano, big words, a little understanding. Yeah. Again, Frank, if he wants to do this sort of thing, he should really improve his reading comprehension, for one thing, just reading comprehension in general, and maybe actually take the time to read some of the studies he's referencing. But thanks for the donation, Chris. Appreciate it. You know what I just noticed? I'll share the screen again. This is crazy. Somebody donated $50 to Frank. Yeah, Frank's getting $50 donations after that performance. So Christy donated $1.99. He says 3-0 vegan gains wins again. Yeah, that's not. Oh my God. Okay, apparently there's some people who disagree. They think Frank won. So look at this. Kelly Rayborn, $5 for the winner. Like, what? There are actually people who thought he won. What? But thanks, Chris. Mizuki donated $2. He asks, do you think Frank sends butt pics to Primal? Why? I don't think he does. I think Primal Edge Health would probably block him if he did that. So I don't think he sends butt pics. But thanks for the donation, Mizuki. Matt Jackson donated €2. He says, Frank reminded me of the court scene from Idiocracy. That's actually true. Especially towards the end there. Frank is, man, if he ever has kids, that's the beginning of Idiocracy for sure. But thanks, Matt. Stitching NoFap donated €5. He asks, how much B12 do you think should be you supplement beside your diet? Half of the sources say 2.8 micrograms, and the other half 100. Sorry, I think that's micrograms or more. No, so for cyanocobalamin, I believe it's 250 micrograms. For methylcobalamin, it's a lot higher. It's something like 2,000 or more micrograms. If you want a resource for that sort of thing, I'd check out nutritionfacts.org. He has a number of videos on B12, and he answers that question in particular. But I think for cyanocobalamin, it's 250 micrograms. But thanks for the donation, Stitching NoFap. But if you want like an answer for that, I'd check out nutritionfacts.org. I don't know the answer off the top of my head. Happy Healthy Hippie donated $5. He says, thanks for the educational debate. Well, yeah, I don't know if I'd call that educational. I mean, well, I guess it is. I mean, some people learned a few things, but like Frank was just plain wrong about things. So much of that debate was just me pointing out that like what Frank was claiming just didn't make any sense. He was just saying words. But yeah, like I guess I did provide my own research, counter evidence. But yeah, thanks for the donation, Happy Healthy Hippie. Curvy Vegan donated $5. She says, just for putting up with the cringe show for our entertainment. Thank you, Curvy Vegan. Really appreciate that. I'm like, again, I'm pretty desensitized to like Frank's cringe at this point, but appreciate the donation anyway. Jared Brimeser donated $5. He said, heart disease risk goes up in vegans. 0.92 is higher than 1. When he said that, my brain cells exploded. It may, like, I don't know what the hell Frank is talking about, honestly. It just makes no goddamn sense. It's really bizarre. I even asked him to explain, like, what the hell do you mean it's going higher? I think at that point, Frank was just saying it's going higher, just for, like, you know, the stupid people in his audience to say, Frank's saying that's true, so it must be true. Like, I don't think Frank actually was being honest there. I think he was just saying, oh, see, it's going up, even though he can tell it's going down. It was really weird, but thanks for the donation, Jared. CN Riverne donated £2. He asks, unreal, you completely smashed him. Amazing work. Well, really appreciate that, CN. One Stevens Styvision, one Styvision donated $2. He asks, will you do a lie detector test about not eating meat? Well, they're kind of expensive and they don't actually do anything. There's no such thing as a lie detector test. There's polygraph tests, and all that does is just measure your heart rate, blood pressure, breathing rate. It doesn't actually detect whether or not you're lying. Polygraph tests are completely inadmissible as evidence in court. The Supreme Court already ruled on this. They're not considered valid form of evidence. So they're expensive. So I'd have to pay quite a bit of money out of pocket to do that. And they literally do nothing. So no, I'm not going to get a lie detector test. But thanks for the donation, One Sty Vision. Banana Warrior Princess donated £2. She says, you look way better than Frank. Well, I guess even with all that makeup, I still edge Frank out on pretty much everything. But thanks for the donation, Banana Warrior Princess. Too Much Vimto donated £199. He asks, thoughts on Tim Sheaf quitting veganism? So I decided not to make a video about it just because just because Tim Sheaf is an attention whore, and he's a liar, and he knows he's wrong. It's very clear from his behavior. He knows what he did was wrong, but he just doesn't care. Tim was never an ethical vegan. Tim has always just wanted attention, and he's been declining in popularity. His YouTube channel wasn't growing. He's not getting acting gigs. He's not getting movie or TV deals. So he quit veganism because, you know, what's veganism doing for him? He was using veganism for fame and attention. And now that he can't do that, he just quit. So that's why I didn't do a video on him. It would only be giving him what he wants, attention. He knows he's lying. He knows he's being totally untruthful with everything. So that's my thoughts on Tim quitting veganism. But thanks for the donation, Too Much Vimto. French Magpie donated $5. He says, Frank is complaining that he is being bullied and it's not fair in his stream, lol. Oh, Jesus. So me asking him to provide evidence for his claims equates to bullying, does it? Cool story. So, yeah, look, after our last debate, Frank also complained about Primal Edge Health being a bad moderator. He'll use any excuse he can, when he loses a debate. Last time it was Primal Edge Health being a bad moderator. This time it was me bullying him. He'll never admit he's wrong. He's just dishonest, but whatever. Thanks for the donation, French Magpie. Your brain donated 20 MX. He says, Google Roston C PhD. Now he knows it all. Roston C PhD. Okay. Who is this person? So I'm seeing a lot of things on Reddit pop up. Okay, well I'll take a look at this person. I don't know who he is, but thanks for the donation, your brain. Gven Shell donated 50 rubles, I think that is. He asks, did you and Isaac Butterfield fight? No. A few people have told me he accepted my fight offer. I don't think he did. No one's been able to actually send me a link of him accepting my fight offer. I have about 50 pounds on him, so there's like no chance, like there's not even a chance of any organization allowing us to fight because he's so far outside my weight class. So yeah, whatever. I'd like to have a debate with him, but the fight thing was kind of more of a joke. If I could fight him, sure, I'd fight him, but yeah, I'd rather have a debate with him. But I don't think he's interested in that. Thanks for the donation, though, Gven. I'll see if he'd be interested in a debate, but I don't think he would be. Brian Avery donated $24.99. He says, Jasmine/Rich, I am not disagreeing. Frank has mistreated you both. I think we can all agree something might be wrong with Frank. This was a clout move. Let's be honest. My point is, are you okay continuing to tower over him? You know what? I'm not going to debate him anymore. Again, I think it's pretty clear that not only is Frank just wrong and dishonest, but I'm convinced at this point he has a learning disability. So yeah, I kind of feel uncomfortable debating him again because it just feels like I'm beating up somebody who's disadvantaged. But yeah, I'm not going to make any videos on him anymore either, unless maybe he makes a really viral video or maybe somebody pays me to. But yeah, I'm kind of done debating him for sure. There's just no point. But thanks for the big donation, Brian. Really appreciate it. Colby Murray donated $5. He says, duck butter, sweat, and goo from male genitalia for his chin, especially after this debate. I remember him saying that he sprays vitamin D on his testicles to increase his testosterone. I don't know if he was being serious about that, but yeah. He definitely got some on his chin, though. I understand what you're saying, but thanks for that donation, Colby. Happy Healthy Hippie donated $5. He says, well, it was more entertaining than it was educational. Yeah. I'd say at least half of the debate was me just trying to actually understand what Frank was saying, or trying to get him to clarify something, or trying to get him to stay on point on a certain topic. But yeah, I provided my own conflicting evidence. I showed the problems with the research Frank was referencing. But thanks for that donation again, Happy Healthy Hippie. Carrion Bennett donated £2. I didn't have anything to say, but I appreciate the donation. Matt Jackson donated €2. He says, Frank doesn't know how to respond, equals starts yelling. Yeah, that happened a few times. I thought it was kind of funny how Frank was talking about rudeness and, being polite, but when I just ask him a straightforward question, he just starts yelling. But Frank is a bit of a hypocrite. Thanks for the donation, though, Matt. Grimlock donated $2. He says, Frank blamed you for his childish behavior. Yeah. So I remember that. Frank said, oh, the only reason I'm acting childish is because of you or something. Frank will blame anyone but himself for his problems because he doesn't have the strength of character to admit he's wrong. So that looks like it's it for the Super Chats. Hope you guys enjoyed the live stream and the debate. Of course, the debate will just be up in its entirety on my channel, so if you missed anything, you can watch the entire thing. I'll also leave a timestamp to when the debate actually starts after it's done processing, because I think we had about like 15, 20 minutes at least while we were live streaming before Frank showed up. But big thanks to everyone who donated in the Super Chat. And of course, I live stream every night. I play games during live streams. So if you're into live streams, come by at about 8 p.m. Eastern time. I always start my gaming live streams. And tonight we're going to be playing more Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. And last super chat, Chris donated $2. He says, "Hey, Vegan Gains, subscribed. Great content, man." Well, thanks, Chris, and thanks for the sub. Appreciate it. So with that said, as always, keep making those vegan and low cholesterol gains. And Zatoria donated 20 euros. I think that's a she. That sounds like a female name, but I guess I'll just stick to gender neutral pronouns just not to offend anyone. Zier said, "Good job wrecking the wax doll again." Well, I really appreciate the kind words, Zatoria. It's not like it's difficult to debate Frank, but I appreciate the praise anyway, and thank you for the big donation. And thanks everyone again, and I hope you guys have a good night.